sounds of those attending the meeting. I see that all other board members are present, so we can begin. We're going to start with the approval of the agenda. If there's. Oh, would you? Okay. Okay, 1B, pledge. So please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I'm not concerned because I had that in there before. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Okay, I'm slightly concerned because I did have that in my notes earlier and now that's gone. So if I say, let's do the pledge later, just ignore me. Okay. So item 2, we're going to approve the agenda. If there's any member of the public who would like to speak on the approval of the agenda, please use the raised hand feature. Seeing no one in the boardroom. None? Okay. Board, do we have a motion?
I move approval of tonight's agenda.
Yeah, I second.
Thank you. Any discussion of the agenda? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. With that, the motion passes. Oh no, okay, I just totally printed out the completely wrong script thing. Okay, so we're on to item 3A, and that is
You do have the agenda right
there we go.
there. Yep.
Study session, anti-racist course for educators. Normally I would have your name right there because I usually type this all out, but I printed out a previous agenda. But there you are. Ms. Banderas, thank you. How do we say the name of your company? Kitsal Education Consulting. Before we start with you, we're going to open it up to public comment though. See no one in the room. If there's a member of the public who has a comment on this section on this agenda item, please use the raised hand feature now. Okay, seeing none, we're ready for our discussion. Take it away.
Awesome. You know what's funny? I was at a kindergarten classroom today, and then I was at a high school classroom today, and now I'm like all these adults, and it just feels like I'm just morphing into very different people all in one day. So I'm gonna try to bring my adult energy into this space right now. How much time do you need at the end of my session?
How long is your presentation?
Well, I thought it was 2 hours, but it sounds like there's more that you're doing afterwards.
Yeah, I think we talked about an hour to, right? About an hour to an hour and a half.
Okay.
Total. So like, we give you an hour, then we can, is it interactive or? Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Well, maybe 90 minutes with the interactive. right?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. We'll make it work. Awesome. So on your agenda, you have everything you need. It's all linked for you. I'm gonna just quickly talk about what the course does, how it works, and then you're gonna actually experience it exactly as the participants will. Except that I don't think they have dinner, so I think you have a slight advantage for the day. But so this course is intended to replace the practice of hiring a one-time PD, you know, for the topic of anti-racism, and then like, okay, we did the work, you know. Anti-racism is such a deep and has so much breadth. It's such a topic that has so much depth and breadth that it's really not that helpful if you just take it once. And so this is supposed to be a sustainable and cost-effective way of having that ongoing learning that gets deeper each time. And it's very modular. And it's differentiated because everybody's not learning the same things. Everybody doesn't need to do the same kind of work. And so it's essentially 4 courses in one, intended for 4 different audiences. And how it works is that folks sign up for the course by taking a survey, which you will also take. It kind of will guide you as to what, you know, you need to learn, what you're interested in learning. It'll tell you like all the chapters so that you kind of pick the one that it is intended for you. We at Get Started will join all the participants before you get started, and we'll give you an intro, and we'll give you some really deep explanations as to why we do things the way we do. And so we'll explain all of our practices are research-based, they are best practices, they are rooted in, theory, they're rooted in practice and expertise, and we consulted with some of the leading educators on this topic, and so we really want to explain to you the intentionality behind everything. After the intro, we will help you select facilitators for each of the 4 courses. We call them modules, so from now on, they're going to be referred to as modules. And then those facilitators will get a training from us at the very beginning as to how do you really hold and facilitate this space in a way that's really helpful and powerful. And then we meet with those facilitators twice more along the year, but we're always available as well for support. And so it's really intended to be something that you can contain within yourselves and a really safe space for you to really do that deep work. We want to be really clear that this course is not to learn about anti-racist things, it's to do anti-racist work within. So we like to say it's personal development in a professional context. Because at the end of the day, we bring who we are to our profession, whether we want to or not. And so it really does intend to really it's a lot of hard work, a lot of heart and mind work within that hopefully will translate to the profession that we're in. So do we have any questions about that?
Maybe, I don't know, I had just a couple of questions about like how, like, if you could, like, I asked you the question and you explained it to me, but maybe, like, could you just kind of, for everyone to sort of say like, who would be getting this course, or like, kind of give some context around why we're reviewing this today?
So I'm going to defer to Tasha on that because she kind of has the plan a little bit there.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry.
So we're kind of in year 2 of our equity work. And so a part of year 2 is grounding everyone kind of where they are in the space around learning, and as Anna outlined, actually taking action and what actions can I take? What actions can I take as a teacher, as an administrator, as a parent, as a student, whoever I might be. And so how we're starting out is kind of with a pilot with this work. Our first focal group will be Lakewood. And so they have a team there that Anna will be working with. And the whole purpose of that is that team will take the course, will give input that'll help ground them, but then they will be applying that work to what's going on at Lakewood specifically and what actions they need to take around equity, what's going to be their big thing. There may be a multitude of things that a school site might need to focus on. They're going to take 1 or 2 things and really dig in to do that work. And so the purpose of training and supporting each team is then that team will then work with their Lakewood team for this particular situation. The other 2 teams who might also join this work would be San Miguel and Juntos, and we thought those were good sites for a couple of different reasons. One, their work around the Juntos program and some of the differentiation that's been required of those 2 programs. The other rationale, they had already started some of this work with actual social justice or equity teams. All the school sites have different names for the work that they're doing. And so a part of their work is if their teams are able to do it, they have the opportunity to do that. But if not, those 2 leaders will be working and collaborating with Carly, the principal at Lakewood, to see how
Which those 2 are again, San Miguel and
CMS.
CMS. Okay.
Yes, and so they'll journey through. So so we wanted to be sensitive to not giving too much to all of our school sites at one time. So we're going to take this year kind of a pilot year, but however, if people really want to do it and we see that's catching on and they want to do that, then we have the capacity to do that, do more if people want it. But we didn't want to start off too big because we wanted to be intentional. And as that work grows and we learn, more might be able to join in and do that the more we learn. But we're going to start there, build upon it, and then expand from there.
And then can you review like it's teachers and leadership, or is it just leadership?
It's teachers and leadership. So it's the principals there. I think they have an instructional coach. I think they have a social worker, psychologist, and I forgot who else is on their team, but they have about 10 to 12 staff members who will be a part of that work.
Yeah, it's open to all staff. The more diversity of roles, the better.
And then last question, because I think we had talked about in packet review, just how is the DO involved then for this? Isn't there a district component too?
There's a district component, but that's kind of a separate bucket, not directly tied with Anna and her work at this time, but it's not something that's excluded, but it's not where we're starting. We're starting kind of with coaching and leading the leaders to lead this work at their sites.
At the school?
So eventually this may be added on, but again, we're trying not to overwhelm our teams, because in addition to that, Christina is leading our principal teams in pairs to do learning walks and equity walks, really highlighting our instructional lenses. So we figured like that's a lot, plus what they already have to do. So we're gonna start here and then see where we go from
Thank you.
here. Mhm.
Those are my questions.
That's good, that's good.
All right.
All good questions. Any other questions? Okay, so one of the really important and intentional components of this work is that, again, it's anti-racist work. With that being said, it's about disrupting racism, and with disrupting racism, you're disrupting power, you're disrupting the status quo, and that is never comfortable. So this is going to be probably that type of space. I just want you to get ready for that. One of the things that we do really intentionally is we separate the learning experiences and we differentiate by racial positionality. And we spend a lot of time in the intro session talking about this and what that means. Because in the history of this country, everybody doesn't have the same role in the history of racism. Some, my history is different than a white person's history, than a Black person's history. And so we have a different role to play, we have a different experience, a different impact, and different work to do. And so one of the things we talk about is that there's a difference between race and racial positionality. Your racial positionality is the experience, is the racial experience that you're having in this country. And so, and I told myself, silence your phone, Anna. Because I know that I get all these calls when I'm busy, but when I'm lonely, nobody calls me. It's a thing. So, with the racial positionality, everybody basically gets to pick that for themselves. So nobody's going to, we may guide you in all of that, but ultimately it's a self-choice. So with that being said, go into the agenda. And if you identify, if you feel like if you identify as an educator of color, go ahead and pick that one. If you are a white educator, go ahead and click that one. And I'm just going to give you some time to take the survey. On the very bottom, once you choose which course you want to take, go ahead and click that link. It'll take you to where the actual course content is. And when you're done, just let me know you're done so we can move on.
Should have sent an email that I shared to you.
You're asking if we got it?
No. Sent you guys an email.
And that's the.
Sorry, can you read that page where it says the purpose of the survey, and there's several paragraphs? We need to read that or no?
That's for your own time,
Okay.
like, for your own curiosity, as long as you get to that third page or that second page.
Can you define praxis for me?
Yes, praxis is where theory and practice meet.
Thank you.
Mhm. And we cover all that information.
You should have received an email, Nancy,
Today.
right now.
So Nancy, the email was the agenda, but it's in the agenda, there are links on the agenda.
Okay, I tried them earlier. I'll try them again, okay?
I don't like choosing both.
You can choose both. Also, even whatever you choose, all of you are doing module forward, so at the end, only click on module 4 anyway. But
Oh, it's not letting me,
Yeah, we can't,
it's not
we
letting
don't
me-
have edit access.
That makes me so sad. Jesus, are you able to help with that so that they do have it, or is that
Resend
on
it, see
me?
if it doesn't.
I don't know if you have to resend it or just.
Or, oh, you know what,
But
it's
you-
saying request edit access, so if you just make the Google Doc,
It needs to be sent to us.
I can, look, I'm gonna send the editable link to Jesus.
oh, you know, what, we could just each make our own copy and
Yeah.
then send it, like, if we make a copy.
It won't let you.
I wanna-
That's right.
So if she can just send that, it'll.
I'll just send it to
Jesus
Jesus.
and send it to her.
And you know, you're all doing module 4 anyway, so.
Isn't that what this is?
Yeah, you do have it.
I could make a copy.
Actually.
I can make a copy
You
and
do
just
have
make
the
it
paper
mine.
copy.
I'm gonna do the big.
Should we just do it on the paper copy then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Gallagher, for that observation. We're not. in
But then we still
kindergarten.
need to get something for Nancy. Or I guess Nancy, you can just
My kindergarten.
think about what you're marking.
Nancy, if you make a copy of that, it will let you check boxes and stuff.
I also sent the Jesus. Okay. And you're all choosing module 4 anyway, so it's just more for the experience. I know it's fun to check boxes. It's productive. I'm checking at about 6:30.
So you have how many modules altogether?
You get, well, you all as an organization get 4, and every person chooses 1 per year. So I gave you access I give the organization access to 4, but people are only taking 1.
Let me ask you a different question. How many modules are there total? There are 9, is that right? Did I read that somewhere?
Sorry, there's 4 modules, which are like 4 courses that each come with 9 sessions, which we call learning experiences. So once a month, 9 months, or 8. Is it 8? It's like 8 or 9.
That's paper.
I think it's 8 now, because the last one, people said it's redundant.
No. It makes me feel like we should do both. So do districts or organizations, do they typically go in order? Like I noticed we're starting with 4. So regardless of what I would check, we would just do 4. But like, do organizations like just choose where they want to start, and then you're saying that once, let's say we're doing module 4. So then within that, I, as an educator, have some choice, or there's a continuum of things
No.
that we do together.
No, yeah, you will choose your module for that whole year. And then if you have it again next year, then you can do a different one or take it again. As long as it's within that racial positionality.
So for Lakewood, for example, that's staff. Like, if I was the principal, I could be doing module 4. And the assistant principal could be doing module 5, and someone else could be doing something else.
Exactly.
And there's several to choose from. And so we're all just working on ourselves, but like within that.
You'll be working like in cohorts. Yeah,
Okay.
so whoever chose that module will be with that.
Okay.
Does anybody need more time? No rush, just checking in. So go ahead and click on if you pick the one for folks of color, go to the one that's for white educators and go to the bottom where it says module 4. Go ahead and click that link, and then you have to, make a quick little Google. You can sign with your Google account if it's faster. And you'll be taken into a screen that has the dashboard. And when you're there, can you say here? So I know you're there.
Can you just repeat those directions in order one more time? You go to the pre-course survey for white educators.
Scroll to the bottom. Go to module 4. Click that link. Very bottom. There will be.
It says enroll in one of those.
Yep.
two.
Exactly. Then you enroll with your.
Okay, I
Enrolling
think you need
for-
to back it, so go, the new link that we can edit, we're clicking on the pre-course survey.
Yeah, pre-course, well, are you at the agenda or are you on the pre-course survey?
Well, I was doing it here, so I wasn't in the editable, so I went into the one where you can do stuff, now I'm in the pre-course survey.
Yeah, scroll all the way to the very, very bottom. And go to module 4. And the purpose of you taking the survey today was more for you to see the content and what it feels like.
Yeah.
And you all should enroll, you all should be able to.
So we click on
see an
enroll for
objective.
free?
Mm-hmm. And you've arrived if you can read the objective and the selected text. We're gonna skip the selected text just because I want to leave you with enough time.
Is this to create a new account?
Yes,
So do that.
yes.
Okay, it's exciting.
So we do
Okay.
disrupt in enactments of whiteness.
Yes. Disrupting enactments of whiteness.
So
So
complete and continue. I'm just at intro and objective. zero.
that's where you should be.
Okay.
Oh, so
Everybody
stay
should
there
stay
at the
there. Yeah,
intro and
everybody
objective.
should stay there.
Okay, I just got in there.
Yeah, let me know when you're there. I'm gonna guide you into this experience so that you feel what it's gonna be like. I'm gonna pretend to be your
Oh.
facilitator. And
Oh,
I'll guide you. I can say that.
Oh.
It's so meta.
Like, oh,
I see, I lost.
Yeah. Like a meta imposter, like an imposter pretending to be an imposter. I love it. So today the objective is you just practice ways to disrupt enactments of whiteness and racism when we experience or see them. By this session, you all would have had a whole session on what it means, what does it mean, whiteness, and what is racism. So this is not the first session. We picked this one, I don't know why, I forgot why. So we'll skip the text, but in the real thing, we would read the text. So I want you to go to where it says we want to do, actually go to the very bottom, you see a green button that says complete and continue. So let's pretend we read the text and we're gonna complete and continue, but let's not do that when we need to sign up for the class.
I have a quick question. Earlier when it has the word co-conspirators, that's like a new phrase for me.
Okay, yeah,
Like a quick definition of that.
Yes,
reading through this
yes.
probably. Especially that it says like co-conspirators, not allies. I was like, oh,
yeah.
interesting.
So there's actually in the intro session also, we have a glossary, so you would get like a
With all the
glossary.
different
of,
words, yeah.
yeah, because there's so many words. But there is a whole session on here too of the difference between conspirator and ally. Being a co-conspirator, being somebody that's really willing to actually put their work, their bodies on the line to really get the things going forward. So. that's the
Hello,
whole
what?
thing. But yes.
Hi,
So it's like
I'm
the
not
next,
having-
you're an
on the
ally, and then the
website,
next level.
I
you can be
can't
more than
check
just an
off on
ally, or
your
like, I think you say ally,
So
like,
I
you
have
know.
no idea about
Hold on,
what.
hold on, Nancy, sorry. Well, that,
I missed it. I missed it.
yeah, you might want to start over, Nancy, kind of like. There was other conversation going on. So what was your concern?
Okay, so it's a pre-course survey. I'm on there. I can't check, it's not checking. Where I'm supposed to be checking each module. So that's not working for me, literally. It's not working for me. We're supposed to be
So-
checking off things that you like and don't like.
So
I can't
Nancy, that part was not super important. That was more for us to see what they will be doing.
Okay,
So you
so
just
then
need
where
to
do,
get into the module. Were you not on to hear those explanations?
no,
Okay, so walk her through that.
Okay, so
Sorry.
so go to the pre-course survey for white educators. From the agenda.
So is there a way, I think it'd be easiest if we can literally just send her that link.
yeah, I asked for the link in the chat.
Is there, hey, Susan, is
Can you
there
go
a
to
way to
Zoom?
just send her the link that
Share
we
your
got
screen
onto?
and you can show her as you go.
Or can Jesus email the link directly?
I just sent her.
No, I mean like literally
The completing
Just
continuing.
the link to this website where,
I think that they
where she just has to then log in.
Even just on chat.
That would be the easiest thing for her.
Right, right, I already did my login, but it's not,
In the training too, facilitators make sure everybody's like technologically set before the first session. So by the first session, people are set.
But Jesus, are you working on it?
I'm looking at it.
Okay,
Okay,
Nancy, Jesus is working on it.
all right. Go,
okay,
How do we
Yeah.
zoom in so we can read that? Are we
No,
supposed to read that?
no, we're skipping that today. Yeah, we're skipping that today.
But then the
So,
top is
Do
a
we
plus
click
sign.
again, complete and continue?
Right.
Complete and continue.
Complete and continue.
Oh, I bet it looks-
And you're going to stay where it says scenario in the excerpt, Dr.
Okay.
Love. All right, so
You already did.
we're gonna pretend that we read that excerpt from Dr. Love, and then, now we're at the scenario. Can I get help with reading it? You can go popcorn style, and you can stop at any time you
Oh,
want.
I get what someone's saying. So if you're the host, if you put it on yours and you just screen share, Nancy can just see it then.
Oh, I see.
That's perfect.
Okay,
Although,
And if Nancy doesn't get
although
logged in, that's
that won't work, because eventually you'll have to write personal answers to stuff.
right.
So the best.
So I
scenario
made-
is we get Nancy.
so
Yeah.
I did a login, but it's not,
like you created an account on their website.
yeah. Where it had created an account, I did. But I'm into the questions, but it doesn't, but I can't. It's not checking.
Can someone give her screen share access, and I'll guide her through it?
That's a good idea.
Can I do that? That's me.
Make her a co-host.
Oh, yeah, make her co-host and she can screen share.
On our-
This one I have already called. The answer.
Sorry, had I realized that
Okay, you're
I
the
got an
co-host.
email earlier, I would have tried to problem solve a little bit more effectively.
It's okay, Nancy.
Got it. I think I said everyone can share screen. Yeah, multiple.
So if, so Miss Nancy, if you could share your screen, I can guide you through it.
Did you hear that, Nancy?
So where are you
What are
screen
you-
sharing? So
Hey, Tasha.
where are you screen sharing?
What are you on?
You- No,
you're
and I
gonna
just
screen
have, like,
share,
different
Nancy.
things.
I'm on, scenario.
Click on the bottom of your Zoom screen where there's like a big green button that says your screen, and click that. And then you'll see like some windows pop up. Click on the one that you want us to see where you're at.
Yeah, right there. So did you have this in there?
There you go. Okay, see where it says pre-course survey for white educator? Okay. that one? Okay.
Right,
go
I
through-
linked into that. I
Okay,
have it, I have that window up.
click that one and go all the way to the bottom, Nancy, scroll all the way to the bottom,
And you go to this.
the other way.
and you
Scroll the other way.
For conspirators, no.
All the way down. You're scrolling all the way down
That's
the
what's-
page.
Alright.
No, stay where you are. Stay on the ACE pre, down that one, but go all the way to the bottom of the page. So scroll down. Not on that one, on the survey. Okay, click it. Okay, click the survey and scroll all the way to the bottom, all the way to the very, very bottom.
It's,
Oh,
Keep going all the way to the bottom. Okay, right there, see where it says module 4?
Right,
Click that. Can you all read the scenario for now?
Sure.
Thank you.
okay,
Okay, go where it says in resume course.
go where it says what?
Resume course. You got it. All right, go on,
Right.
you see that little green button that says complete and continue? Click
Yes.
that. Click it again. Click it one more time. All right,
Okay,
and that's where we are. Go ahead and just read that to yourself. You're all caught up. And when you're done, when all of you are done reading the scenario, go ahead and click complete and continue and go into the first personal reflection question. You will not share that with anybody. That's for you. There will be 2 questions. Finish those and then stop for community engagement. I'm gonna give you all, is that 10 minutes? And Miss Nancy, when you're done reading that, click complete and continue and then answer the question that pops up.
You want me to unmute? Since you want me to unmute. That's not true, right?
I don't care, no. I can hear you.
The halfway point is.
No, I mean like this time, so I don't spend all my time on the first
Oh,
question.
got you. We're at the halfway point.
We are, okay.
The intended audience for this module. Wrap up your last thoughts, and don't worry if you can't finish it again, you're just sampling of course. You can always keep this one.
How did they each contribute to the problem? Looking at each of the characters, examine how their response is an enactment of whiteness.
Beautiful. Can someone read the second?
Describe ways, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Please.
Describe ways in which the characters could have disrupted the racism named in the scenario. Discuss the roles Lisa, Joe, Thomas, and Chelsea could have taken as disruptors and co-conspirators, then rewrite, rethink the scenario that includes at least one instance in which racism and whiteness get disrupted.
Beautiful, thank you. And since you were not at the intro session, I would have you would get the glossary with all the terms, but for now.
I've been working on. Going beyond, first recognizing, right, and then. Right, so they're recognizing it, then there's probably lots of reasons why they're not. That, right, like that piece of moving from not just recognizing it, but then being willing to say something to, I mean, even to just say like. Hey, let's stop and think about this for a little bit, as opposed to just being quiet, right? And I think it was also, I'm also just generally like. Someone who doesn't stay quiet, who does speak my mind.
deal with somebody who is, you know, actively trying to combat like what you see in front of you, or actively trying to combat reality. And so I think, you know, that false binary of like, it's two equal sides, we're gonna split the class in half. And we're gonna go along with this, and so therefore we're gonna just basically.
Kids, one of them is pretty much in philosophy and speech and debate, and he always say like, oh, but you need to listen to the other side, and you need to understand the other side, and you cannot be so closed in your views, which sometimes you need to understand that you just, I mean, you can hear or learn what the other side, but you don't need to step on that, you don't need to act it, and I think it's wrong because that can cause trauma, that can cause a lot of problems and really and break a lot of relationships on one hand. And on the other hand, I think like even in media and journalism, they learn that they are learning now that there is a point when you need to put a line. It's like every time you talk about World War II, you're not going to bring a Nazi to talk the point of view of Hitler because we want to have a journalistic view and be fair with the both sides. Well, you don't need to be fair with that. You need to move on and accept that we don't like that side, and we're not going to give it a platform to live so we can understand them. Now we can see them now back in history so we can prevent it, but we don't need to understand how it's living in that reality. And that's why it's very invalid point of view.
Like, it would be different to like ask the questions like, well, why does that person feel like they're saying, they need to say that, you know, or like what is their lens, like, you know? And, but it's just to spout it off seems different.
If you all had to rank egregiousness, what stands out to you as like particularly egregious from the scenario?
Jeff or Nancy, what do you, I don't want to make, you don't have to say anything, but I want to make sure.
No, I'm kind of getting my head around this a little bit too, because I'm a social studies teacher. You know, and it's kind of like, and I'm also kind of conflicted with like the current babble going on right now. I feel like if you don't, in a way, because it's current events, you don't talk about it and you don't allow, like, I mean, it's kind of like the mentality is if, you know, you feel like there's a truth that can be had and people will come to realize it more they talk about it. But then again, you see all the talk out there and you're just, you know, but then you also hear like education, people talking about how we're indoctrinating children. So it's almost like if you're removing that voice, and that's, you're actually falling victim to exactly what they're saying.
And I
You know.
think that's why I asked, what is the egregiousness of this scenario? Is it
Other
that
than
we're,
it's a no-win situation.
well, right, I mean, is it that we're looking at multiple perspectives? Is that what's egregious about this?
It's the fact that there's like an ugliness that we're trying to protect.
What? I want to hear from y'all. What is egregious about this?
Well, I'm trying to, in my response, stay away from blaming, like saying, oh, you were the worst culprit. Like, I think that,
Just action based. These people aren't real.
yeah, I know.
They are.
But and I think,
They are though.
and we left their names the same.
And their addresses.
I think it's like, to me, it's not Joe, the teacher. Okay, because he's got he's a person of color, so I don't know, I can't speak from that perspective. But to me, it's more the people who are silent, who recognized it and say something. But then that's partly a system, so it's not the people, again, it's not the people,
Plot twist.
I don't know.
It's not even the person. Maybe it's the superintendent's
It-
fault
yeah.
after all.
I mean, I think probably it's the president's fault. I mean, because I know who this is, but I mean, also because I think, like just the idea, like somebody with openly racist views as president, that in itself is a position of authority. And, we're supposed to be teaching, truth, we're supposed to be teaching truth and history and all these other things, and we're supposed to be instilling this respect for authority in our systems of government. And so it can be very confusing and I think it's confusing for children. And when the question came up where it was like, how does this relate to, the children of color or maybe migrant children in the room? Like, I didn't remember reading anything specifically about migrant children in the write-up, but that's because, but then I was like, can I go back? And, I was like, I couldn't quite remember. But I just remember, with the coronavirus, there were kids who were getting blamed, in the lunch line saying, oh, you gave me, I don't want to get too close to you. You're giving me coronavirus. And the kids would be crying, So, this was happening like at one of our middle schools at lunchtime, and we thought they were being extremely funny. And I can't imagine in a classroom getting into like that kind of targeting language with kids in the room. Like, that's the part that really just kind of gets me.
I think that, and one thing that we have to keep in mind when we talk about like Western culture and even white supremacy culture is that we hold intellectual discussion as like the most important thing. Like, how many times people have said to me like, oh my God, the topic of slavery is just so fascinating. But, you have to take in mind the way that you're teaching things and the content that you're teaching things, the actual impact that it has. Everybody's not just here philosophizing for fun. Like, there is an impact to what we're teaching. But that's, to me, a side point. I think the main point here is that this unit forces students to argue for somebody that's harming them. So this is not a point about whether we protect them by not talking about it. It's how you're doing it. And I feel like that's what Joe would say. If we called him out, Joe would be like, well, what, are we supposed to not show everybody's side? Should we only teach our views? Well, no, you can teach multiple views and multiple ways of seeing things, but why do you have to do it in a way that forces kids to espouse and enact and really take on an identity that is self-hating? Especially when you have students who are literally directly impacted by these anti-migrant and racist views that this hypothetical president holds. So you have to be really mindful when you're catching racism. We miss those nuances. And so it's really easy for people like Joe to be like, well, and then they gaslight, right? Well, should we just ban free speech altogether? No, you should just modify your lesson plan, So just thinking about that.
And sorry, but in fact, you can try parallels, and I have at least 3 that we know of. There is, how the kids feel in that experiment with elementary kids that are like the blue eyes and brown eyes. And I think everybody know the story, like dividing the class, and then one day you humiliate the kids that don't have blue eyes, and the next day you humiliate them. That's a very traumatic situation. And then you put the kids in a position, some of them enjoy the power and then they lose it. But then you also have, like, you put people to leave the, like, Stanford experiment with the jail and try to be torture other kids, so they feel this, they embrace the sadism of torturing the other person, and then they suffer the trauma of being tortured. So how easy it is to lose control of something like this on one hand, when you embrace to be bad, because let's be fun, I'm gonna be bad for this little thing, and then you embrace it. That can also be very traumatic. It's something that can go out of hand very easily. And other parallel is somehow in the last years, we gave some sort of national permission to everybody to take out all the stuff that you had inside you that so far were not that good, but now it's okay to be mean and to be all the bad things that all your life you repress, and now it's okay. We are just learning the two sides, we're just being sincere, and we just hate the little guy. So, look, all the problems I have created when we just open that and let's talk about this, because it's so unfair for the rich and the white and the powerful. So let's take their side and understand them.
No, I think that's really important, right? Because we feel like there's, first of all, in the humanities, is there really such thing as neutrality ever? Like everything, there's no, I mean, you know, even when we try to be objective, right? I mean, philosophically, I would argue that objectivity is impossible. That's my personal feeling. But Joe's argument in the scenario, he said, Joe said it was important for students to hear both sides of the argument. And so everyone was kind of like, okay, well, that's true, right? But you have to keep analyzing it. If you feel in your gut that something isn't off and you hear a good argument for it, check deeper. You know, check deeper and see what is really the problem. The problem is not that, it's not that we're hearing both sides, it's that we're having students enact a side that they may not even personally hold, that, you know, and people, I hear a lot of teachers, well, you know, kids should step outside of their own beliefs and, you know, so they can see other beliefs. But I think that's a very fine line when you're asking students to step into a belief that is literally harmful to them, you know, that is against their own personal interests.
I think that might be one of the more egregious things too, is how everybody did remain silent, because everything in that lesson plan is sort of like kind of typical for the way they teach social studies teachers. So in a way, it's almost like when you see the lesson plan, even if it doesn't feel right, there's aspects of it that does feel right because of the way we're trained as teachers. So you're like, well, yeah, but it doesn't sound good, but yet. So it almost demands more talking through, so you can, because they're like, some of the standards is about, you know, supporting empathy, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. But then now we're being introduced to these other topics that are like saying, you know, yes, careful, except for if the shoes hurt, you know, don't wear them.
Right.
But so yeah, it's interesting. It's like I said, I read it and part of me was like interesting, but yet, you know, I don't know.
This scenario, I was coaching, I think at Berkeley or something, and there was a teacher that did that. And this is what's worse about it, all their students were newcomers. So you literally had students that possibly could have even been in cages during that 2016 transition. So imagine if a student is dealing with that traumatic recent migration experience and is now literally having to argue in English that you should vote for me. Like, how traumatic could that be, right? So that's something. Did anybody get thrown off by the fact that Joe was a man of color?
Or that the lesson plan came from the
Let's
social
say, I would
justice
say,
side.
as he was talking, I have another egregious thing is that this came from a social justice website. Like,
Yeah,
what? That's a big problem.
that's another
And
reason
I hadn't like really processed it out until he was talking, and then I was like, oh, yeah.
that this was two scenarios mixed. There was one that we went to that had people play enslaved people in, you know, and it was from a Howard Zinn. It was like Howard Zinn's work. And it had people like, you guys are gonna pretend to be the enslaved owners, and you guys are gonna be enslaved people. And it's just, how could this go right? It just cannot. So yeah, the idea Right, but was anybody thrown off by, did anyone feel like, oh, this is wrong, but they're a man of color, so maybe not. So, people of color can enact whiteness and racism, right? And we can internalize that and perpetuate it and propagate it. So, and then to Dr. Gallagher's point of like, well, I don't want to blame anybody. One effective way to disrupt racism is to just name the behavior and the action and then stick to the impact. Because what people want to do when they feel accused of something is they want to bring it back to intention. Joe, like, well, I want everyone to have a fair point of view. I want to hear all perspectives. And I hear that intention, Joe, and the impact that this could have is this, and that's what I'm concerned about. So it's not your intention. It's not who it's coming from. This action could have this impact, and that's where you want to keep the conversation. All right, let's go into next. Go ahead and put complete and continue.
Do you think that it was that interest in fair play, the need for fair play is because he perhaps was feeling that, like, because he was the only person of color, so there was like this, I'm here standing up for fair play? Or do you just, like, did you, in real life, like, did they impact any of that, or?
You're saying the teacher in real
Yeah.
life?
Like, I mean, like, do you think that, I mean, like, because like, maybe that would be like a way to say like, well, this isn't necessarily about race or anything. This is just about being fair,
Mhm.
right? And so, like,
You
maybe that's,
It's funny because as an anti-racist consultant, I always want to keep people away from the why
why,
and into like this is how it impacts it. So it
Mhm.
doesn't even matter.
yeah.
Yeah.
If they could have been internally racist, they could have just had great intentions. They could just be rookie teachers who don't know no better.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter. The impact, those babies are going to be impacted the same
Mhm.
way, regardless of that man's intentions.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter,
Mhm.
In the real scenario, the person was white, but we wanted to throw you a little. Going to the next one for me, go ahead and hit complete and continue. Can I get somebody to read part of being a co-conspirator?
Part of being a co-conspirator is acting on the willingness to disrupt racism when you see it, even when you don't feel you are directly involved, and even if it is uncomfortable or inconvenient. Leveraging white privilege by speaking out against racism is part of the role of allyship, and it should help relieve people of color from an undue burden.
That's one thing, y'all, about white privilege is that if you're white in this country and you don't really want to deal with racism, like you don't have to, it's like not really gonna affect your life either way. That's a great way to step outside of that, is when you see it, really acting on it. Like we gotta act on it all the time. So, when you all do it, it's like, now I don't have to do it in the same way. So that's a really great thing. Can somebody, thank you so much for reading that. Can somebody read the Imagine?
Imagine that the scenario took place in your current school and you were asked to participate in helping create an accountability plan to help address the harm that was caused. What is at least one recommendation you would make for how to begin repairing the harm? You are free to focus on any aspect of the scenario: school-wide, policy, parents and community, students, teachers, etc.
All right, y'all, we're gonna be the district that doesn't wait for this to become a mess before we take action. So I'm gonna kind of change the scenario a little bit, and you're gonna work in partners or in groups. And then Dr. Dean, since you're sitting next to me and that would be cheating, you can go ahead and work over here if that's okay.
Cheating.
Only because I know how it all ends. So we are going to pretend that you are who you are in your real life. So I guess that we're also not pretending. And you walked into that scenario. Like you were gonna go get a copier at the copy machine or whatever. And you just found out that was about to happen. The Joe situation, and everyone stayed quiet, right? And then that told you something about the culture, as Dr. Gallagher mentioned, like, this is a culture thing, right?
Mhm.
So that told you something. So here's what I want you to do. So write this down because it's not the same. The first thing I want you to do is, what did that tell you about what information did you get about your school, your district, or whatever you're in charge of? What did you now learn that you have to like be mindful of? And in your current role, how are you addressing it? So how are you bringing, again, you're not gonna wait until it's a mess and everybody, becomes a Twitter thing. You're gonna come back and you're gonna handle that right away. How are you gonna handle that? And then I will,
I have a question. It said in here that those lessons had already been going.
whatever the scenario said, you found out about it like right away.
Okay.
So what did it teach you about the space that you have control of, and what are you doing to address it before it becomes a mess? And you're gonna work in your partners, and you're gonna present your idea. And then I will clap very loudly if I like it, and a little loudly if I don't like it. I just wanna hear what you all have to say. All right, let's spend,
So this is related to that scenario. So like we walked into that discussion that we just. like,
you
read
found out about that somehow, like before it was like this whole public thing. Like,
Yeah.
So we found out about the discussion, but before they actually started teaching it.
You found out about the scenario as it's written.
Yeah.
So whatever happened in the scenario, that's what happened. That's what you learned about.
That's really good. Five.
What did you say, Mike?
Get five.
Oh.
The same time.
Well, what am I gonna do to dress about it? I'm like, the board members, we actually have a pretty easy thing, but you guys have.
All right.
Maybe. It's not responsible for the leisure, like, that people. What if we? Yeah, I can come join.
Do you mind helping her?
Yeah, sure. How do we get her to know everybody? She's not on that. Not the problem.
Maybe just.
Talk to them.
Thank you so much for her.
Hey, Nancy, I'm gonna call you. on the phone.
Even the nasty uniform.
I think the.
Are you preparing up for the
Yes, I was, yeah.
Thought is there, that there's damage.
I don't know, what do you think? How will you?
Yeah, we have to teach people. that-
Post.
Hey,
Your moment of time that.
you're nice. So what I was I'm starting to say was, the info I learned, like, it's kind of connected to my thoughts about the other questions, but just to like. There are people who felt uncomfortable but didn't say anything, right? So like, right, like, that's kind of the info I learned is right. Okay, there are people who like, it wasn't like that they were all oblivious to learn that it's not okay. We need to learn how to speak, right? So that was kind of, that was my initial thought to the first part, like what info did I learn? What about Nancy or Jeff?
like.
Like, so did you get in that scenario?
Then. Or not, some, like that. Maybe part of it. Well, yeah, so that was.
Yeah.
Right. How are you called?
Can I pause you and interrupt really rudely, because something really important that we do in our real sessions that I didn't do here is that we review the norms. Just the only norm that I want to bring to this space is that you're using your space, your power, your intelligence, your creative energy, everything to disrupt the status quo, not to keep things as they are. So remember that norm as your, that's your focus right now.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nancy, did you hear that? Okay.
Right there, yeah. Yeah.
I called. Scenario for you. Okay.
Yeah. If you see yourself in this, don't get mad at me.
Yeah.
And then-
But, yeah, the rest of it, you have
Yeah.
Even though it's gonna be- you have to do it.
But you're not.
Focus on the impact. It has to be very-
Learning. And then he was explaining to me.
Yeah, maybe it's-
Very kind of-
Like, what's like your initial, like, what info did you get?
If you don't want to challenge, if I overheard, then they're gonna be people who are gonna say,
That.
wait. Disagree. Right?
Even the people that disagree with it.
And it's something to be.
I was.
So I guess.
Really.
Well, it's not about, so I think. like,
What he was.
Adult, you know, we're just trying to. Kids not used to- like, hopefully you got- So what about? You have to. It's
But I mean, so you're right, this.
And that's so great. And. Try
Some of the most traumatizing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
Try to do with quality.
Oh my God.
So then, yeah.
I think
See, I'm surprised.
Why?
Less than. About. Right. It's a real political.
Well, I think it's. Yeah,
That's
what I was just saying is, you know, getting that for their. But don't put yourself in that other position.
It's all about.
Well, I like what Nancy said about like, that, maybe the power, like the power to be captured, right? And that's kind of like, people, like several of them, right? Like, you just don't know, right? And they part of the journey like that, like. To me, that's less of comment, like, right, if you're doing best intent, like, just people are not aware, but the ones who were aware didn't speak up, so why did they not? And how do we create a master?
How that.
Yeah. I was on.
Nationalist. Is that what you're? So they start talking about. I share power. That's all good.
I can have strict power, like, right, well, and I actually noticed earlier, right, when I was great, like, I was vigilant that it was a black, or the men who spoke out and said things and made the decision, and it was the two women who felt uncomfortable and didn't speak up, right? So I actually noticed when I got other. Right, like.
Like a restoring.
Well, yeah, like one way decision, he was like the chair of the boss, you don't want to do that. Lead or whatever. Yeah.
You won't be. Not Mike, you won't. How you. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not like, as a we, right, like Michael said, I would get 5 calls, right? Like we would. Never mind that, right? There's the right ask, the right question, right? So I think it's really good.
It is. We don't learn so
You
much.
know, Culture.
Right, the community, right, we're not doing it.
Well, I guess, I guess why wouldn't we want to like? If they did. Not on the plane. Did you try to sort of like snag people? Intervention, probably depending on what they can say. I know this is not. I want to put it over this.
Yeah, yeah, the guy.
Yeah.
Five more minutes.
We can keep talking, but we are mostly done. I think I think all of those, you know, those are all type of- Oh, people know, I didn't know something that, but now that you make it.
This used to be the sentence system. We only get the.
And then I have the styrofoam ball. So it's kind of like the upset, like being kind, right? Like you're kind.
But that used to be like on the second, actually like, you know, just public between kids.
Yeah.
That's.
It is.
All right, as you wrap up your thoughts, start wrapping up, start coming back.
Nancy, are you still on the other call? You just put it on hold. Okay, I'm gonna get this one. Yeah.
Who suggested hiring kids out education? Everyone else is wrong. That was the only right answer.
Well, so I actually like the bottom line, I was like, the right answer would be a turn to you guys. What do you would want?
That was the only right answer. Y'all, can I get a quick explanation of like, what is going to be the biggest pushback statement to anybody trying to confront this as an issue? Like anybody who names this is an issue, what's the biggest, the most common thing you're gonna hear back as to why it's not an issue?
Well, probably what you said. Like, everyone has the right to their own opinion.
But also, I think the other issue is that the kids who might be very affected might not have said anything in the moment. They might have gone along with it. Or like, we're always looking for student engagement. There might have been a lot of student engagement in the room, like people really getting into it. And so like the teacher might not have, I could imagine a teacher not necessarily reading the emotions that are going on necessarily correctly, like maybe attributing them as being positive when maybe they might have been negative, you know?
And even if, what if all the students did like it and were like, yeah,
Oh, man.
that's still a problem, right?
Yeah.
So what's gonna be the biggest then, if we know that that's gonna be the biggest pushback, what's our response to that? Impact, y'all. Impact. You gotta bring it back to impact. And that's a good key for you all as disruptors, is try to bring it back to what is the impact that you saw or foresee happening. That's how you get out of the weird cornering of intellectual blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, because people will throw all kinds of, well, what about this intellectual that? And listen, the impact. Okay, so center impact. I'm gonna be really nice today because you fed me. I'm gonna give you a quick summary of another PD that you guys would have taken if you got in our anti-racism for administration PD workshops, but you didn't, so I'm still gonna give you a freebie. I'm gonna give you just quick, I won't go into detail obviously, but it just quick 5 ways to respond to hate incidents or, you know, incidents of racism or things like that from an administrative perspective, okay? So it's up to you if you want to take notes or not. So the first thing when you learn about something happening that is harmful or problematic is the first thing is you want to communicate. And communicate does not mean that you only speak. It also means that you listen. So how can you let folks know what happened and then hear from the affected parties what they would like, how they felt? Everybody sends out the letter, but like mostly nobody sends out an actual engagement, a survey, a phone call. You feel me? Like it's really important to do both. The listening piece is what makes you stand out from everybody else. From there, you prioritize restoring the harm. That's the first thing. Based on what you heard. Based on what you heard, I say that again because a lot of times we already know what we're gonna do to restore the harm, and then we just like symbolically listen to you, but do what we're gonna do anyway. Don't do that. Okay, literally restore the harm in the way that the people want it. Sometimes you don't agree with it. Seek counsel. Seek, if you don't know, if you can't tell how this feels problematic, what the people want, check in with an anti-racist consultant. I say that in jest, but it really is true. You know, check in with the community, somebody that you trust, making sure that you really are responding to the harm in the way that people want the harm restored. The way that the people want harm restored and the way that we see justice is very different from the way that white people see justice, folks. So a lot of times it'll be like, well, that seems harsh, or that's what we want. So, you know, give the people what they want. The third thing is you want to center accountability to the folks that created the harm and not on some punishment energy, but more on some, it doesn't even matter if you had a great heart for it, but like the impact was this. Sometimes accountability is education. You know, sometimes accountability is suspension. Sometimes it's, you know, whatever it is. So, you know, there's not a one size fits all, but like, what does accountability look like? From then you continue education for everybody. So I always say when I was like leading a space in a school, I would always say if it happened once, it's probably happened multiple times. We just finally heard, because you hardly ever find out about the first time, you know? So, you know, like it's assume that it's an issue and just to continue that education. And then finally revise policy, review and revise policy, and you know that making changes to policy is slow, but making changes to practice and culture is not as slow. So all of it should eventually. Hopefully that was helpful. That saved you all $5,000.
Yeah, just answer the question.
What, Nancy?
Well, you said restoring the harm the way, in the way that people want. Sometimes you can't, because of employment laws and others, you may not be able to give them what it is that they want. So how can you honor that and still maintain whatever employment agreement that you have?
Agreed. So depending on the depth of the situation and how deeply you need to engage with folks, it may need to be multiple conversations. People understand legal limits, like we of all people understand legal limits to things. And so it's a matter of coming back to the people and being like, well, I don't actually, that's a union thing. That's like outside of my control. Here are some possible choices. Here are some possible things. Do any of these feel right? You know, it depends on how small or how large, you know, sometimes you just have to do your best. But for example, I don't know if you guys heard about the district that had the incident with the black doll, where a black doll was being defaced. And like there was no administrative response to that. That was a situation where like they really needed to sit with parents until the parents approved inaction. That's a situation where you're not done until they approve it. You know, other smaller events may just need, you know what I mean? So it's all contextual, Nancy, but the idea is that you're genuinely trying to give people what they want instead of using policy as an excuse to not give them the spirit of what they're asking for.
Oh, I appreciate this. This is just the nuance of the situation that things may take longer and there may be some barriers to work through.
There's always gonna be barriers, yes. All right, let's quickly hear some ideas. What did y'all come up with? I'm excited. Let's start here because I heard you, so.
You go. That's what you talked about.
I know, understand. Yeah, we said, need to amplify the voices within the system itself, and not a very diverse staff, just looking at the scenario. But we did spend a lot of time talking about what to do. It was, naming the impact. It was getting ahead of the messaging was in not a PR term, but really engagement with the community was the key. Name the impact and the harm and keep it focused on the students because just wanting to make sure that it's not usurped into a larger sense, even by those within the system trying to preserve status quo. So we needed to really name the impact on the students. It could have been a restorative practice. It could have been an opportunity to really have lean in on this and engage your school site community, the community in conversation about this. And we can get down to the actual remedies, but it's just taking the time because it's not a one and done fix. And so it's going to take some time and some professional development with staff and just try to do that.
He used the term crisis trinity. Right, like you could turn this into like we talked
Oh,
about
opportunity, I was trying to.
crisis and opportunity.
Okay.
So like, starting with the message of we're a learning institution and the institution needs to learn, right? So that kind of takes it off of individuals and saying, and I think like in my position, I would need to say, okay, this is on me, right? This is on me. And then go to the kids. Yeah, that's the other.
It's the kid's fault. I'm just kidding. We just said me and it's the kid. I just thought it was funny.
I know.
Sorry.
So anyway, that's it.
But even that, putting the onus on you as the soup, it still centers your power, right? Because at the end of the day, like if you were not more powerful than everyone, then it wouldn't be on you. If the power to change a culture was in everybody, then it's on everybody. And that's what we want to work towards.
Yeah.
You know, you can be as benevolent as you want. You ain't gonna do nothing by yourself.
Right.
Right? So that's good. That's helpful. Now, do these PDs include Quetzal? Otherwise, F, okay.
Differentiate the learning.
Yes. All right, this team.
Well, it comes back all to education, which is what we do, as you say, is just put it, I mean, depending on who is on the top, everybody's gonna think like the guy in the top is just a different sort of bullying. And as you were saying before, it's like, maybe everybody in that team was afraid of talking about it because the principal or whoever was on the top was telling them this is what we're gonna do, so they didn't feel like I need to speak. So although that's the why, not the how, but it comes back to education. If we educate people and we bring consultants and we do the actual work, then it's easier to move forward. So no matter whoever is the boss, you have staff and a culture of equity and fairness.
What would be the topic that you would center in your education efforts?
Anti-racism, equity.
Yeah, belonging or anti-racist. I mean, yes, but I think like when we were talking also, we were saying like, you know, yeah, of course, we'd call the superintendent, we'd say like, hey, like, we need a plan, we need a remediation plan, like, this is going bad, like, come and talk to us next meeting, let's talk about what's happening. But like, because we do walk through and see stuff happening and we're like, like, I don't know who found out that Eric Phoenician, the guy dropped something on Eric's car when they were doing the thing. That would have been hilarious to find out, to be the person to call, but it wasn't me. But remember that when they did the
Eric Nosian, Everett Ellis, one of the construction workers dropped a big beam on his Tesla.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, people see things and they're like, hey, superintendent, this happened. But
Yeah, they got covered. It's just like possible on that news. That would not be a fun thing to say.
yeah.
This is the context, so that's all.
Big thing. But so like, I mean, the people, so I think the main thing is like, for me, is that like this idea of like, okay, we have to get in there and work with the kids who were like, have already had the lesson. Like the way it's written is some kids have already had that. And then we like have to work on our culture. We have to work at maybe the team culture, the site culture, but probably our district culture as well. And so like, what does it mean? Like who are we focusing our work on? Are we focusing on, what did you say? You said something really, I can't remember. We gotta record ourselves because then we just start.
Well, we
But,
are.
Yeah, we can watch later. Maybe we can listen in. But the idea was this idea that like, we need to take in the perspectives of the people who might be the most affected, by this, and like, what are we teaching them if behavior is communication, right? Like, what are we actually teaching them? So, yeah, and I don't know, I think the purpose of education is creating belonging overall, and not just perspective taking, but like not making someone the other. And so,
Yeah, because it's relative, as I was telling you, just like last week, I had a couple of experiences where some people of color, they feel other, as you say, as a verb, like they weren't the focus of the equity work at their school, and they were very mad about it.
Absolutely.
And they felt like they were other, like those people who need extra language help, those people who, and even though these people were people of color, they feel other. They were like, it's unfair that I don't get the attention to, it's unfair that I don't get the equity work. So it's part of the education progress will be, the problem will be on the, like, people understand what is the message and people can understand how to relate. And so we can all be on the same page about fairness and equity, which is not, let's put one particular group here or vilify the other, because then you get reactions and then you get, you get a war, a cultural war that is unfair. Because of cultural war, all the equity work is vilified, which shouldn't.
We are already in a cultural war. Now it's just a matter of how we suppress it or engage with it in an effective way. So yes, wonderful. Let's go this way. Did y'all want to share? If not, it's fine.
Well, what I said was, it's easy for the board to just say, superintendent, what are you doing? Right, and then superintendent will say, okay, team, let's put together. If we're having a school site, if it's district wide, it's gonna be like, putting all the heads together to come out with something that's gonna address the impact of whatever is happening with the kids, right? So that's the bottom line.
Okay.
That's kind of what we're looking at. But I said, it's easy for all five to say, you know what, it's over there. What are we doing, right?
Yeah.
And kind of what Bridget said, okay, as a whole, what are we gonna do now, right? So, but the bottom line is the impact, so that's what we're saying.
Yeah, because if we make the soup fix it, then we're giving him also power to top down into, he could use it in an evil way, he could use it in a good way. So,
well, and I think like, because we're not supposed to do the how, we're not supposed to talk about the how, but like, I think just like letting him know that we care about it and like we heard about it, like that's like a signal. And then there's something else I want to say. I'll think of it later. Oh, I was just gonna say, like, there is an urgency with apologizing to those kids. That was the other thing we talked about. Like, you have to apologize to the kids and just say like, we were wrong. And like, just flat out, we were just wrong.
first and foremost,
So
absolutely, that you can.
Preparation.
Yep. Yes. What did you all say?
I'm just wondering if I'm sure.
If you want to share, you don't have.
Okay, well, we kind of talked about for the kind of the info. Was similar to kind of the things we talked about earlier. You know, so that idea of like learn that like people don't have, you know, like maybe some of their power is not shared, right? So people weren't speaking up, you know, when they maybe felt uncomfortable. So kind of like wanting to dig deeper into that, right? It's like, why did that happen? One of the things was, do our teachers really know who their students are if they like thought this was gonna, you know, work or be good? And then also kind of like people were confused. It's kind of Jeff's point about, right? Like there were aspects of good teaching in it, right? So it's easy, he could see, right, how it's easy to get into thinking like, oh, this is a good thing, right? So just, and then, right, so it is like talking to the, right, in the specific role of school board, right? We don't get to go in and fix it or like be a part of creating the change per se. But I think not only like calling our superintendent, but like asking those, right, asking the right questions, right? Like the questions, and so some of those questions, right, like, you know, so I think that's where our role is not just alerting, but then also asking the right questions that will help staff to engage, you know, in, I don't know, the most effective ways, I guess.
Wonderful. Yo, what's one thing that you all have control over, more control over than like teachers and students? It starts with a P
Well,
and
the
it ends with
policy.
a Y. And rhymes with policy.
Change the subject, but you, it was interesting when you were giving your 5 things. I think if I heard you right, you said policy is slow and culture and actions are faster, and I would disagree with that. But maybe it's how we look at it. Like, I feel like we could very easily, when we've done it, we've created, right? We have policies, we have it, right? We have lots of policies. We can create these policies, but like, if the culture
You're
doesn't
right.
change to go with it. So I just, and maybe how you use the word.
No, you're right, because I mean, I think that how I meant it was that to change something like through policy can be slower, but you could immediately apologize or you could immediately respond, but I didn't say respond, I should say responses are fast,
Yeah,
but you're right, culture is a lot slower.
yeah. So I think like that's what's part of
You're
like, we can
absolutely
create
right.
all these policies,
But don't
but it's
underestimate
how you
that
get to
because-
practice of those policies that make the bigger difference.
Correct, but don't underestimate policy because you're the only power holders over policy, the most that mostly can impact that. And we on the bottom of this poll fight as hard as we want. If the policy isn't there, it doesn't matter, right? So that thinking just as a freebie, if you don't have a policy for how schools can respond to events like this, you need one immediately. Right, like these, for example, these 5 steps, do your principals know what to do across district? You know, do all your principals respond the same way? So that when these things happen, you can go back to that leader and say, hey, did you follow our harm reduction protocol? You know, rather than being like, well, I had to figure it out on the spot. Well, you already had a protocol. So you control policy and protocol. That's where I want you to put a lot of your energy in as board members, because that's the power that is unique to you. You can do education and all of that, but policy and protocol is
So
where.
how do we find the best right? How do we know what policies we're missing that we should have? And you just named one.
Right, yeah. I think like that's the thing, right, is that like, that's why as a board, we want to create, you know, a baseline for like, just really understand where we are with equity right now, because we haven't done the inventory yet. We don't have a systematic way of looking at it. And I think that like, you know, for us, we want to do the work, but we need to understand like how do we rate on the inventory and how, like, what areas are we strong in and what areas do we need more development and what's missing, because we do control the policy, but it works together as a system, and that's the whole thing.
Exactly. So that is what we mainly do. The education piece is, you know, the supplement, but what we really do is we start out with that audit that, you know, it identifies exactly what's the most important thing, and then we help you create systems for listening to the people. Like, if you don't know what the policies are, also know that's how privileged you are, right? If you don't know what's immediately necessary, that means you're not affected by these things. And it also means that we don't have any systems to listen to the people. that know exactly what the policies are. When I talk to parents, they know exactly what the policies are that they need. Right? When I talk to board members, they hardly ever know. So that's what a good anti-racist consultant does, is they bridge the gap. They kind of take your power away, they give it to the people, and then we like transfer that. That's what a good consultant will do, is maneuver the power in the room. So yes, I'm glad that you can acknowledge that. Last one, we'll make it quick. Sorry not to rush you guys, but don't rush. Say your piece.
Well, just quickly, we kind of looked at it from in the moment, because in our experiences and in our roles, more often, those are positions we're put in. We're doing a walkthrough on a campus, we walk into a classroom, we see this lesson being taught. We're in the break room, we hear someone talking about something that they've actually done, or we're the administrator of the site for a day, and we find out that this lesson has occurred. So we kind of put our time and energy in, kind of talking about the harm of the teacher, because the place that we went to is what happens when we're not in that classroom or any other classroom. So we put our time and energy into actions of changing that moment in spacing, making it better for what happened on that day or days that we don't know about, but trying to empower when no one's in the classroom that won't happen again. So we kind of looked at it from that perspective, and what's the best way to accomplish that, but that's the way we were looking at
The prevention piece.
the prevention piece. So that incident does not occur again. And that person learns from what they did too, so that they also don't do it again. And hopefully they increase their voice so that they share what they learned to another teacher. So that teacher doesn't make the mistake that they made.
Oh, yeah. Give yourself some snaps, because that was a lot of work. Section 4 is, how you will implement the learning for you all, because this is for staff and classroom teachers, for you all, and this is actually like, please do it. So implementation of unlearning is like what you'll do for the rest of the month before you go on to the next one, because you're supposed to put this into practice. For you, what I would like you is to think about or really create what is your district-wide protocol response for prevention, addressing and response to harmful incidents like this one, to hateful, whether you need to be ready. So whether it comes from students or teachers or parents, and then, how do you train all your principals to know how to enact it? And, what is your district-wide response going to be? Because if we just like, well, we don't have a plan, we assume that racism is not happening in our schools, but that's not true, right? Something's gonna happen, and it's just a matter of how loud it's gonna make the noise. So that's my encouragement to you. That would be my assignment for y'all. We can support you with that if you need help. But those are the 5 steps that we would base it on. So
That's good.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
For engaging with me. Let me know if you have any questions.
So I had a
Thank you.
question about like the pilot. So will the pilot, when you say it's at Lakewood and maybe San Miguel and CMS, like is the idea that like San Miguel and CMS would also go through the same thing that Lakewood is, or are you thinking Lakewood would train San Miguel CMS? Like what's your?
We're trying to develop what CMS and San Miguel will do, because they have some other big initiatives they're working on. But the way we're envisioning it at this time is Lakewood is going through this. So if the 2 teams at CMS and San Miguel want to do it, then they'll do their own thing, just like what Lakewood's doing.
Okay.
But if they don't have capacity, they're going to learn and build from what Lakewood's doing, and begin to at least support the teams at their site while what they're learning and growing with from Lakewood. But ultimately, the goal is to go through this well with one site. So when the next group goes through, we can talk about what we.
Hello.
learned.
Hi.
Hi,
Okay.
I can hear you now.
What we've learned, what we want to learn, what we can improve upon and grow on, and then strengthen that work. And then that doesn't end it, but then that team that continues to build that work in teams at the site that can continue to do that work with one another as new people are coming on. So it just be a constant, and each person can continue to build where they feel they have deficits or areas they want to build upon or things like that.
I do want to share something in all transparency. This is anti-racist work, and you all have, for the most part, demonstrated a readiness to do this work. Not your whole staff is not going to be in that place. So your feedback from the schools may not be all the way positive, and it may be because of the course quality, you'll get that too. But also it could be that people are just not ready for that work, or there's some people that just don't want to, that's where they're at. So just take that in mind if you're waiting for like positive and raving reviews. Then if I'll tell you this much, if I get positive raving reviews from everybody, then I'm not doing, this is not that great. Because disrupting racism really disrupts people who aren't there. And so I just want to, that's the lens that you have to receive the feedback from. So just having to differentiate between like, is this feedback for the course, which we do have, of course, for people who are ready, there's also things that they haven't liked. But whether it's just people resisting the work as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's already there.
And that'll be the tricky part is to get people ready.
And
Right.
some people may not, a secret, I always tell people, if you just do your best with the culture, everybody doesn't have to be on board. So I say, you can have racist teachers, but the question is, why are they allowed to enact the racism in your school? So it's more about, the culture is right, then like every single person is on board, that's never gonna
So it's the behavior again.
happen.
Yeah.
It's the impact, and you can control the impacts and the outcomes a lot more than you can control people's inner being.
And the idea is that after Lakewood and San Miguel and CMS, then it's slowly moving to all the 10 schools.
We're gonna let this year inform us, but we're also not just waiting, but we just wanted to start with what we felt we could control. But what I've learned about being in Sunnyvale the last few years, when things are going well, or people are interested or curious or whatever, they start calling and say, well, why is Lakewood getting to do this and we're not? So if we get another school who just jumps up and says, hey, we're ready, we want to do this, we wouldn't say no to that, even this year, but we are moving that direction.
Up to a point, because you can't start like at any point, you have to start like, with enough time to complete the course. But yeah.
So how many months does it take? You said the full school year?
8, yeah,
Eight,
it's a full school year experience, yeah. So we could start like either now or like January, but like not in between.
Then do you also do things like with the other districts hire you, or like have you worked in spaces where you're like working with the community, like facilitating discussions or community education
Like
around
that, like
equity?
parents and community.
Yeah, families.
That's not our forte. I have better resources for you.
Mhm.
If like the world was ending and we're the last consultants on our earth that could do it, but it's not. This is where we thrive right here in the policy and practice. But I can give you resources if you send me an email.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited that we got to have this conversation today.
Wonderful, thank you as well.
Thank you.
If you all don't mind, I'm gonna get back to my baby.
Okay.
If that's possible.
Yeah, great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bring your salad.
Yes, my dear. I didn't eat my veggies, don't tell anyone.
Thank you so much, Anna.
It's like, it's always a pleasure.
Maybe like a 5-minute break.
Does anyone want to
Yeah.
take a 5-minute break? Okay, so we'll take a break. Yeah, we'll take a
We can try to
5-minute
get
break
before.
and we'll be back at 7 if I could 7:57. Yeah.
7:57.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
We may leave for audience.
Yeah.
Being really slow, and like
No,
it's
yeah. I put
loading
this side-
there it is. No.
Did I say it?
Take care.
Bye.
Yeah.
Looking at a CPE class. Bring my lunch. And then there's like a corner at the right next to the administrative office, and out comes more food. They're trying to give food
Yeah.
away. They're trying to like the kids make.
So you don't need to bring your lunch ever.
I think that's what I'm worried. Well, thing is, there are times I didn't bring my lunch.
And then.
And I guess it was classroom instruction. I almost want to like tell the teacher, you know, like when I'm evaluating, I'm like, I want to see your schedule. from now on."
They just say, hey, I need your schedule, so I need to know when to bring lunch or not. I would totally do that.
Okay, we're gonna restart the meeting, 7:58. We're on to item 3B, which is the review of the governance handbook. Before we begin, if there's any member of the public online who would like to speak on this item, please use the raised hand feature now. Is there anybody there? Okay, well, if they raise their hand, they can comment on the review of the governance handbook.
No hands.
No hands, okay. Let's see, so board, initially our goal was to just make some adjustments. The changes that are incorporated are from our last meeting. There are a couple of updates in the handout that we got where the district will have to put sections in, like the employees that are no longer here, or what is it called,
Partnerships.
the partnerships, and also the org chart or whatever
Oh,
for
right.
this year. So there's like 3 things in the back that we didn't touch, but they're still incomplete.
We're working hard on
Yeah, among other things.
98%.
Yeah, great. So, but other than that, like our goal was to like maybe discuss a few things, if you had any questions or new things that have come up in your thinking, and then possibly make those minor changes and bring it back for approval on consent the next meeting. But if there is a little bit more work to be done, we could do that. But the overall goal was to have this ready for a new board member in December. So, and we thought if they were gonna be, there's no campaigning, we thought if they were gonna be campaigning, they might want to look at it right away.
She's ready.
So, yeah, so if they would like Eileen would like the new handbook to be done.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah,
Oh, sorry, no, I thought you were gonna stop. Finish your thought.
I was just gonna say, like, who wants to start the conversation?
I was just gonna ask, like, timeline, like, are we wanting to be done by 9 o'clock tonight?
Oh, we want to be.
Well, like,
given-
almost done, like, when do we want to be done with tonight's, that's what I'm saying, when are we planning to be done with tonight's meeting, and like backward planning to like time, like, my question is how much
Good
time
answer.
for each thing?
Okay, I am leaving as soon as we finish. I'm gonna go to the Unity Summit. I decided that it would be better to do this in person, but actually I don't wanna drive at midnight to like 2 hours to Monterrey, so as fast as we can would be great, but I don't want to just ignore points or not convey messages, like whatever you wanna say.
So if we could finish, I think our goal would be to finish by 9
Finish by 9,
or sooner,
yeah.
like if we decide like, hey, this is just gonna take much longer, we can just agendize it and talk about it
Yeah,
again.
so
It's
about a
fine.
half hour-ish.
Let's
for
try for a
governance
half
handbook
hour.
right now, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to pull it up right now.
So the first question I had, I put it on the very front page, is when I said, do we want to add an annual adoption or signature page on there? That was like a best practice thing that we've seen. Is Nancy, are you here? Can you hear us okay?
Yeah,
Um,
I can hear you.
So that was my question. I don't know if you've done that before or.
We haven't done it before. What we've done is, and I don't mind doing that. What we do need to do is at least bookmark when we've adopted things. So that, I'm fine with that.
So the date would the date would change, on the top, obviously, it's no longer May 2022.
So one thing referring to that, that other people do, and I saw that it's like, it was original one of my comments from the leadership summit, but actually it makes more sense here in the handbook. Is that, and I think that's, as you say, best practice, a lot of people sign as almost like an MOU every year, the book, the handbook. So if it's evolved with the changes of the board, then everybody acknowledge, and in that way you reread it, and if something needs to change, or if something needs to stay, we will say we still like it, or we're gonna change this or that. But every year, you sign the handbook.
So it's kind of a signing of like a recommitment, like
Yeah, I'm
Like,
committed to
I'm
this.
supporting,
I like
in
it,
this
yeah.
handbook.
And that would cause us to remember to agendize it, like on one of the governance team development meetings, like January, whenever it would be.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're all gonna sign it, then, yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
sometime beginning and middle, whenever we
Yeah.
decided that it's like a commitment, like,
Do it at the same time every year, I
Yeah.
would say.
yeah.
So I'm gonna write yes.
Yeah, and it seems like that beginning of like the new cycle, right? So January, February, that seems like a good time.
Because people are agreeing to be whatever role they are. and-
Yeah, and then also if you have someone new, right, if it's an election year, then you are addressing it towards the beginning of their time.
Okay,
So I think good.
Is that an arepa?
Hmm?
Is that an arepa? What is that? No, in your right hand.
It's just the bread.
This is bread.
Oh, it's not bread, oh, okay.
Would you like one? That's fair.
I think
No,
she
no,
has
no.
bread in front of her too.
It look texture different, sorry.
so on page 4, there's right now there's a sort of a blue diamond or, square, where it says well-being, community belonging, integrity, and love. And like Isabel and I were looking at that and we thought, well, like we're a school, we could put an apple in the middle, we could put a heart in the middle, we could put another shape. And then it actually, instead of, I think we should just, I personally would feel like, if we did like a star or something, we could have joy, or we could have community and belonging as separate. But if it's just like 4, I don't know, what do you think about either replacing it with a different shape like an apple or a star, or adding joy, or breaking up community and belonging?
Yeah, like when we were having that board thing that we were putting too many, and then they were making us go down to 3 or 2
Mhm.
when it was too difficult.
Well, see, that's what, I mean, so yeah, so my thought, I'm good with whatever you guys want to do, if we add it or not add it. My general feeling though, which is true of everything, the more things you have, the less it's a party, like, or core, right? So generally, I feel like less is more, but I also like, I don't disagree with Joyce, so I would be fine, like, I'm happy with whatever.
Why don't we just all quickly weigh in so we can just decide, or like, and how do you feel about a symbol in the middle? You want an apple?
But
You
the thing
want-
is,
Doesn't matter.
I don't care super strongly, so people can.
I'd rather put our district logo in the middle.
Okay,
The logo meaning.
which one? Like, what's our
The
logo?
little
The tree?
seed,
Oh, yeah, that little thing. What is that, a seed, sprouting
it's
seed?
a seed, because it's like the learn today, lead tomorrow. Why are you
Okay.
laughing?
It's so nuts, but it-
No, it is.
I know.
Yeah.
She would say yes.
I know,
that's
yeah,
what
it's a
it
little
was.
plant, I know.
Yeah, but
sequence.
that's very linear.
That's what it was.
Maybe inside of a circle or something.
I don't
We're
care.
looking for a graphic
Mm-hmm.
designer point of view, because it's very
Most
linear.
people
It
are
would be
literally
just-
not gonna look at this, but us, so it's really,
Yeah, if it's,
I would be fine with you two deciding it too.
yeah, because otherwise it will be from love to well-being and then ignoring the other 2 sides, because it's a linear logo, maybe in the middle of a
That's
circle.
the other part, reason I was laughing, because I'm always aware of graphic design.
Yeah,
Oh.
Okay, so we're gonna do a little sprout inside of a circle.
What would
Are we
Jason say
okay with
about
that?
this right now?
yeah.
Which is.
Hmm?
What is that?
I guess I don't want to rebrand something. I think it's gonna be, if it's our core value, if it's the core values of the Board of Education, then we should be using the district logo unless we want to create our own logo, and I don't think we have time in a half an hour to
I know, I'm saying we're gonna use the district logo, Nancy, but we're gonna put it inside of another little, maybe it'll just be a colored background that's a circle. It's not gonna be,
Yeah.
we're not doing
you-
a new
you can
logo.
create something, that sounds great. With the logo.
Okay.
For t-shirt sales, so.
That's right.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, and then last part on this one, like I would suggesting put in belonging over community, but because I think belonging and community are synonyms. But belonging also it also connotes it also connotes like your self-belonging, your sense of self and belonging with the world. So I would prefer using belonging over community. That was my thought on it, but
I'm okay with that.
are you guys okay with
Yeah,
that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I technically like the word community better. I think we learned that. I think you and I will look at words very differently, so I don't really care.
Okay. Anything else? You had a couple of things.
Yes, I have, well, also things that a lot of, it was part of the discussions and a
On the
lot
same
of
page or
other
different page?
people do.
Are you talking about on the same page or a different page?
And now I'm going to, I have notes for page 11. And it came from when I shared the slides, it came from the Building Community Engagement Workshop. Some things that we could apply will be like school tours or town halls with the board, some representative at each of the school sites. So the idea of the community engagement part.
So you're on the bottom of page 11, engaging with school communities?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So then there was another thing that was talked, like a lot of people did with, I think we
So
just read.
the first thing that you said was about town halls at
Yes.
school. So like that was like, that's sort of like what we're talking about doing board office hours this
Mhm.
year.
Yeah.
It's like going to,
In person to the sites and somehow, engage with the community and listen to what the community says. But I suppose it's a little twist of what we do. So
Yeah.
a lot of them do two things. They go, or they have a committee, or they choose people, they rotate around, and then they go and talk with the parents. And listen to the parents, listen to the
This
community.
is board members or staff?
The board member.
Board members, okay.
So I suppose it's just a twist of what we do, but in each of the schools, like going to the 10 of them over the year. And another things they do to make the connection also between the kids and the board is they somehow go to school events and talk with the kids. Like make an interaction or listen to the kids, what is bothering you, or I don't know, have some sort of topic and make town hall with the students. So I don't know how we can approach that, but a lot of people apparently do that, and I thought it was very neat. When we talk about building community engagement and the idea of, I think last year we talked a lot, also on your goals, we talk a lot about parent engagement and community engagement and parent education, and we talk about all this stuff. We already talked about that. I talked with Mike. When we give the parents the parent education, a lot of some districts, what they're doing is that they are calling that parent education, they are calling it university, and they are actually giving diplomas.
don't
to
we
the
do that in
parent.
Vargas? I feel like there was some, didn't we do that?
Well, I think some of the peak or.
PK.
Yeah,
PK had a
PK.
little certificate. Some of the programs do have certificates with them and things like
But
that.
there was a.
Yeah.
There's like an adult education where it was like computer skills or something, or
No, that's through the
parenting,
city.
Yeah, but it was
Sounds-
Well, there's
here.
been different ones where we kind of do something like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they say like they change the way how they do the parent education classes, and when they call it university, and then they make all this noise about making the ceremony at the end and bring the families and the kids. Somehow it inspired the kids toward looking for a university or a higher degree, but also make the parents stick to the 6 weeks or whatever it is that 6 nights they have to come to make them feel like they're going to achieve something that say university with their name in a diploma. because, you know, this is a lot to do with, you know,
So
the low income community and.
I appreciate that. I'm not sure how this fits in with what we're talking about for the board.
Because it, page,
For,
yeah, because page 11 is talking about ways to engage with school communities. Under like,
So
formal
it's the bottom of
structures and-
page 11.
at the bottom of page 11, Nancy, so that's why she's talking about it here. And like, these are like, so like right now, like, I don't think we captured, like, right now we have board office hours, but like, I think this year we're gonna try to move it out to, we might still have one on Zoom, but we're gonna try to move it out to the school sites, like Michelle had talked about last year doing, and but like, really, the parents weren't really allowed on school sites last year, so we like made no sense to, you know, do that. So this year we're talking about doing that. So maybe for engaging
so
with,
okay, so I'm struggling with what is page 11, what page 11 are you referring?
It's called engaging with school community at the end of page 11. We list ways in the handbook. We're talking about the handbook. We are listing
Right,
different ways how we normally like encouraging.
Hold on a second, hold on a second, hold on a second. Okay, so the page 11, the very top of it, has a box, and in the box it says protocols, formal structures, and processes.
Okay, just,
It's 12 on the
okay,
PDF.
thank you.
Okay, and then if you scroll to the bottom, then it's the engaging with school communities.
Thank you, because I have like two sets of numbers, page 11 and page 18, so that's the reason why I'm.
If you're on the doc that has the 2 pages, that was from the packet review, so it
Thank you,
has kind of 2 numbers.
right, okay,
Thank you.
so
I think this is just maybe a longer discussion, maybe is that kind of what you're saying, Nancy, is like, if we want to make significant changes to what we're doing, that should be a discussion another time, not right now, we're trying to throw stuff into here, yeah?
right, and it should also be with our new team, because if ideal, we can talk about what we might want to do over the next few months, but it needs to be a commitment of the entire team. We're gonna have to revisit.
So, yeah, so are there some general things that would fit into a bullet that we could just add a bullet?
Yeah, I
think
think
there's-
And I thought this would be the perfect place because it's agendized. We're talking about the handbook, and these are things that are about the board. So it's a perfect moment to bring it up and talk, because otherwise we can wait 2 or 3 years to start.
Because some of them I
slowly.
didn't think were very controversial, like listening to students.
Yeah, it's just like a switch of the lens of things that were, it's not.
Well, and what if we
100%
even like, let's put in a bullet that kind of has like, that summarizes kind of like town halls, and then we can just have like an asterisk with it that says to be discussed more in January.
Hmm.
why don't we just say like, I mean, because we do attend, we have attended town halls, right? So this is just documenting like ways that we engage with school communities, so.
Yeah.
We've on Zoom, we've had town halls, so I mean, I think we could say town halls, and we could say,
Right,
I mean, I think that that's perfectly acceptable to just include and capture. And then, one thing that isn't captured here is this idea of board office hours that could be paired with, you know, like, coffee with the principals at the school site, or it could be on Zoom, and so we could just put that there.
Yeah.
Right, and then we can talk more about the how, like, as we go through, like as the next one comes up, right? Like we have who else is doing board office hours with, I mean, I'm signed up for it. Who else is doing it?
You're doing the next, you two are doing the next one.
You and I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do that at a school, and we're gonna
Yeah.
probably do it after drop off and whatever, and we can see how that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But this would be a good spot to capture it, and I love the idea of town hall with students.
and I like the idea of, you know, going around the schools, because like last time you have 2 people in Zoom. Before that, I've been in 2 of those, and we have like one, and then like, are we gonna close it, and then somebody else shows up, like it's not really working, and
Good
that's
idea.
not really giving us an idea of what is going on in the community.
Right.
But when the board goes to Vargas or to Cherry Chase, and we say, hey, we're gonna be there, please come, and the principal say, well, please come to whatever the
Community event?
community event, or we're gonna be there as a town hall, as the coffee with the principal, is telling, well, you matter to us, tell us what it matters to you, and we're here to listen. So it's a real town hall. It's like, we're listening, you are important, we care, and we actually listen and care.
You know, in addition to, when I was a teacher, I remember Jeff Barnett came in my room. For one of the staff walkers, he doesn't remember that at all, but I mean, he came through and he was like really polite, and like the little wave. And I was like, who was that guy? I don't know who that is. Like, oh, that's a board member, that's Jeff. And I was like, oh, I don't know who that is. But I was like, oh, then I was nervous, right? So I was actually good that I didn't know who you were. But I was like, I mean, it was like so terrified, but like the
After the
idea,
fact or during the time?
what?
After the
After,
fact?
like, once I knew who you were, then I was like immediately freaking out completely. But you were really nice.
Did
but,
they freak you out or anything?
Yeah.
His glare at
It's
you.
the glare.
But so what I was thinking was like, you know, pre-pandemic or like maybe in ancient times, whatever, but like at some point in time, like board members were going to those school site visits that the DO does, right? Like, because he was there with Ben and all those people. So everyone knew it was a dog and pony show already. Everyone was prepared for a DO visit. And then they showed the PowerPoint that like we get to see in the boardroom later. But like Sarah Tias ran through the whole thing with us, and Claire at the time yelled at us or something. It was like, she did. She did.
Sometimes we went, we always had more announced visits. It didn't always necessarily coincide with site visits, because sometimes site visits just need to be staff site visits and not necessarily with the board members. So that's something that we can talk over more with Mike to see whether it would work or not work, because we don't want to get in the way of what they're doing.
Mhm. But if you're just thinking like, well, you know, or like whenever it's an open thing, but I think having more community events is gonna be
That's
way
gonna help.
easier and way better.
Yeah, kids though.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Like the forum with the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's pretty good.
that's a good idea.
Well,
But
we
that-
had Bridget, we'll talk later, there was something that you and I went to. That we like talked about, I was once COVID's over, I'll have to go back and find it, because there was some really great idea about kids and
Mhm.
board members.
But just that thing that you did to prepare for your,
My speech.
where you just went out and you just talked to kids and asked about their, whatever it was, and that's really good.
It was super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to do that at all.
Yeah. And then one of the things that I noticed is most of people like, because when they were narrating the stuff that happened during the crisis or whatever it was later, a lot of them had kids coming, start the meetings always with kids.
Mhm.
So representative of school or whatever they do, the kids open the meeting.
We were gonna start that when I was board president, but COVID stopped that.
And we did have them come before, like, right, like, didn't your child come in and give a little thing about the spoons and sporks or?
Not my
Something-
kid, but yeah, I mean, we
Recycling or
started
something.
it, but then COVID just shut it all down.
We
Yeah.
had, at one point,
Right.
Jeff and Nancy remember this. We've done that before, where like during the school
Yeah.
presentations, we had kids or something.
It used to be that we had a lot more, and then I think the criticism was that the schools, you know, kind of used a lot of the time for the kids, and we weren't a lot of contact behind it.
Yeah.
It was fun.
But there were kids that were small.
But it's also hard because we were starting our meetings at 7 and drawing families out
Yeah.
at their evening time. There's pros and cons to all of this. We just
Yes.
need to be intentional about what the added value is going to be, because I also don't want kids being on the spot. I think the last time we did it, it was more recognizing student leaders and also parent leaders.
Yeah, I remember the parent leader here
Yeah.
because they had they brought him in and we did lots of smiling. It was super
Yeah.
cool. You got to hear about different ways
Yeah.
people were engaging.
That's good.
Mhm.
Correct, so, however that, happens in authentic ways. And I guess I also asked, how do, parents and kids feel about it before, assuming that they're gonna show up for their task?
And we can leave it open to the principals who they wanna bring and, you know, what is the excuse they may, I mean, they should bring, as, you know, they can bring 2 little kids, or maybe the representative of the student body, or like the student board, or are they gonna bring, I don't know, some special event they did, and then there was this kid who shined because of that, so when they bring, we start with that, which normally will bring also the parents, so they have, they get another relationship with what is the board, and we actually exist and this is happening.
Yeah,
Because
so
a
it
lot of
sounds
people
like,
don't even know that
I mean,
this
we're
is
kind of just having a discussion about stuff that isn't fully on here. It sounds like we probably should have an agenda item at some point in the next few months where we talk about essentially the ways we want to engage with our community, right? And I think that should be an agenda, because we're really like,
Yeah,
we're almost at our half hour and we really haven't gone through. Not this is not important, I'm not saying it's not important, it just, I think this is an important topic, we should like agendize it and
Yeah.
discuss it more in depth.
and then we can kind of see, maybe we can do it after the first board office hours too, and kind of see how that goes and.
Maybe we could ask the parents to show up.
Mhm.
Well,
How would do it?
not that, but like,
No,
how do
I-
you think other parents would?
Yeah. I know, I get what you're saying. I agree. Okay. Mhm.
I was gonna say, so the only other thing that I'd like to highlight out of this, at this particular point in time is page 14.
How to manage dissenting votes.
Right, I'm gonna work a little bit more on this, but I think it's different than managing dissenting votes. It's talking more about, I want to frame it where it's talking about engaging in conversation at the board table. And so this is like our public accountability, and we're also trying to set the example. So while it's in a script section, I really want to highlight what Bridget and Michelle had kind of threw up during our COVID conversation, and put those set of beliefs and ideas in this particular section with intentionality, because it really, in looking in the past and projecting into the future, if that was in there, that would certainly guide a lot of discussions that we have at the board table by modeling what it is that we're asking people to do. And so it's not as difficult an ask to ask for your why.
So Nancy, I mean, if you want to work on that page, I'm good with that. Those pieces that I think you're referring to are in this governance handbook in the areas kind of about like
Correct.
conducting, leading the meetings.
Correct. I acknowledge that, but but it's that intentionality about how we're presenting ourselves as public elected officials. We need to have that same accountability about that. So it's explaining our votes. It's not just dissenting votes. It's explaining how do we explain our position on.
So you want to work on this page and bring it back to us?
Yeah. It's not a major overhaul, but just kind of reframing it in a positive way. A lot of this came from a very negative place in the past about the handbook being thou shalt and thou shalt not. And I think,
To help get some people in line.
yes,
Well,
yes,
get them to talk.
yes.
The
Yeah.
communicate their thoughts.
All right, so is everyone
Because
good?
they
if
would
she
just say
kinda-
no.
So is
Yeah.
everyone good if she kind of works on this one and kind of brings it back to us?
Mhm.
Does that work for everybody?
So, yeah, so my question is, so like, we're probably just adding the two bullet points that we talked about for the other one on page 12. And then for this one, are we gonna, like, do you think that you'll have it ready for the next meeting, Nancy?
Yeah, that's an easy do.
Okay,
Like, so,
so, but then, so we're not
so
gonna bring
like
it
by
on consent,
Wednesday,
we'll just
because it has to
agendize.
go on the. So it'd be a discussion.
So it'll be a discussion next time, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
But for approval.
review and approval.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Well, it could potentially, right, if we need to like circle back, then we don't approve it, and if we can put it on review and action, so if we. are
we'll
ready
put
to
a review
approve
in
it,
action so we could approve it.
And
Yeah.
if we're not ready, then we just say, okay, we'll approve this next.
Okay.
We'll say, bring it back on consent, you know, or bring it back on.
Yeah.
Review and approval, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Okay, so I was the one who had a whole slew of little things. So if you want to start on page 9.
Okay,
Okay, so bottom of page 9, the self-monitoring of governance team and organizational meeting. So, that first bullet under self-monitoring of governance team, it just says annually during April or May, the board shall conduct a board self-evaluation. And I can't remember if we had finalized or just talked about different times. Like, I know, I think I really like when we do it at the, like, in November, kind of leading up to like the
Yeah.
change of organization. And I just don't remember if we had finalized that or if that was just a discussion. And we hadn't finalized when.
I thought we did finalize that because
don't
that was,
remember.
because I think we said that's when we're done with our job, right? Like, how did we do as a clerk or whatever? And then maybe that way it's, you know, because like, we're gonna. It's so awkward doing it in April or May because
It's on there.
it's like.
Yeah, especially if you have a new board member too.
The
then
board
they're
member
like
like, I
just-
guess I'm okay, so, you know, who knows? I don't
Yeah,
know,
so
I,
are we good then putting that as annually during
November,
November?
What page are you?
Page
9,
9. So the top of page 9 says board vice president duties.
Mhm.
Okay, so say annually during November. And then the organizational meeting, like I'm fine with that bullet, but I just feel like there needs to be that bullet seems a little bit funny, like, because the organizational meeting, really the main intent of the organizational meeting is, I mean, that's part of it is the schedule, but it's also the like, who's gonna be what position,
And the
who's gonna be
roles,
what committees,
yeah.
like all of that. So I just think adding that bullet would be
Yeah, I think we
helpful.
need a bullet for that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
You
and
know how to word
then,
that, Casey's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, and then,
you get that.
okay, so the next one, page 11. And it's the 8th bullet under managed consent calendar. And I just have no, I don't understand what it's meant.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Oh, and then also just side note, I'm noticing. we
Sorry,
have
which
page? Page 11. 8th bullet under managed consent, but I'm also just noticing just logistics, Jesus, like, there's a page 9, and then the very next page just has a 1,
yeah.
and then the next page after that is 10, so our numbers are just off.
Yeah.
For when we get a final thing. Okay, so page
sorry,
11. It's the 8th bullet on. Manage consent. Oh, the 8th bullet, which is called manage the consent calendar to avoid overwhelm. I'm just wanting to know what that is meaning.
Wait,
So
I
it's
don't
under
see that
the,
on
it's under the
11.
new board member orientation. So page 11, new board member
orientation.
orientation,
Okay,
then the
wait, what
8th
is it, the
bullet,
other- what
manage
number
consent calendar. To avoid overwhelm until new board members are up to speed.
One-
So I'm just wanting like clarification, like what is managing the consent calendar? Like, what was the purpose of this and what does that look like? I don't, we don't need to take it off, I just want to understand it.
Oh, I think what that means is. Wait, oh, consent calendar?
Well, right, what we put on consent.
Okay.
So just making sure that people know what it is before, or have a feel for what we usually.
So is
do.
it more explain consent calendar is probably more what that should say then, right?
Correct,
Okay,
yeah,
Explain. Consent to avoid overwhelming new board members.
yeah, that sounds great. Okay. Then page 16. Committee work, professional development. Okay. Oh, and I think, this is the one I'm just highlighting, right? Because I think that whole list is great. But I think, right, I think those first two, I think we all would agree that those are like priorities, right? Like, if you can't do everything or other things, like those two, like, we really want a commitment from all the board members to do those two bullets for sure, right? And the other things are like nice to, I guess,
Yeah.
right? So if you guys agree with that, which I think we do, is there a way to highlight those two?
Or just say,
So new people
just
know.
put a note like priority.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah,
What page are you-
So it's
16.
page 16, so it's the committee work professional development, and there's the first two bullets, so attend the CSBA AEC and complete CSBA's Masters of Governance.
Not to get too off track, but when do we have a sense of when we think Masters of Governance should be completed?
Like when it should be completed by,
within your first term.
Within your first term or within your first 2
Yeah.
years, first year?
Well, I mean, I think it's tricky because, well, now it's a little easier because now they offer them online and at different times, but for a while, like. They only offered them like on certain weekends and like
Yeah,
Ethan was in club sports, and so my first year, like, it really wasn't
yeah,
even possible for me, like.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, what are you gonna say, Nancy?
I was gonna say, it's had so many different iterations, and the other thing is that it's best if you can do it with a friend.
Yeah,
Either the superintendent or another veteran board member can step up, or if they've made a buddy of another new board member in the county, that works out really, really well. So I think, ideally, if they can do that within their first term, that would be great.
within the first term. Okay, that,
Well,
say as
I
soon
think
as,
Bridget just said,
yeah,
it is easier now.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it's
I mean, I
kinda
get it,
ironic
I
that I
do
say
feel
this,
like,
but it's within
you
the
know,
first
I
2
think
years.
starting within the First year, right? Like starting within the first year.
Yeah, I'd say it's the start, within the first 2 years, probably not that difficult. Because even
Yeah.
if you can't complete the first year, they're pretty flexible, to let you complete the second year.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think we can say annually for the first one, annually attend the CSBA.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah, I was having that discussion with our new member, so.
okay, so page.
Is there an
20
issue with the first 2 years of that with her, or?
No, I mean, she wants to do everything quick. My personal bias is I kind of feel like maybe if you get elected to the board and then you start right away, that might be too quick.
Oh, like she would want to start it.
It was online, I did it
Oh.
before April, but it was online and it was.
Yeah.
like,
I think you gotta consider though, that if somebody gets elected that has a job, a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, has a
Yeah.
family. It might be a little difficult for them at times
Yeah.
to get to those modules, right? So
Yeah,
2 years is probably a good length,
I
but
like the sound of that, like, but
Yeah.
I was thinking like if there's some advantage to having a little bit of experience under your belt before you go and do it. I don't know.
But
Yeah, like I
if you-
think waiting a few months before you start it, I think actually is beneficial.
And I would say spreading it out among 2 years is actually probably a good thing too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because though everything that they cover in Masters of Governance, they give you in that welcome to being a new board member orientation, like one day you get it all. And
Yeah.
then Masters of Governance, it goes deeper by
Yeah.
unit.
Okay,
And so like, you're gonna want to have to review it anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
So,
But I do agree not jumping into necessarily right away, like especially if you've done that new board member workshop. Wait a few months and then I think you can get more out of it.
and we're gonna do that together, so that's gonna. be
Yeah, that's super great.
forward to that, actually. And the whole time, I'm feeling terrible about Isabel's. 'cause
Yours
we-
and yours
we
was
just got-
not nearly as
We just
good.
got thrown in it.
I don't know, it was Saturdays, it was
Yeah.
pandemic, I just got it in the first 3 or 4 months, every Saturday or every
You
other
came out
Saturday, and.
It came out great.
Yeah,
I
but
kind of really hate
I
the whole
know.
pandemic and stuff, but it really has created a lot more efficiencies.
Some things.
Online.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's-
I mean, it was probably the Saturdays weren't that busy, but I just started going every other Saturday, every Saturday, it was like Saturday and Sundays, and sometimes was like after 6 PM on Fridays, and then the whole Saturday, and
Just did it.
just did it very
Yeah.
quickly. And
okay, you want to get out of here, so
Okay.
what else do
Sorry.
we need? You're still going on your list?
Yeah, so I mean, I've got 4 more if we want to go through them quick.
Yeah.
Okay, So page 25, it's on, in that, that big, like, what new board members need to know, and it's under governance protocols. And it's the one about introducing new ideas for the board's consideration. And we have, so during board comment period,
Right.
it says, or the board president or superintendent for discussion. And I know a little while ago, I don't remember when, we'd had the conversation about doing it at the end to kind of help those beginning board comments go through faster. Like, I'm okay either way, but I think being intentional about where we want it and placing it here would just be good.
I would like to do what they do. I think it's Santa Clara Unified, where they have just one agenda item. It goes really fast. They just say, is there anything, like, you can do it in your board comments, like, that's how it was set up before. But like, where they just have one agenda item, is there anything someone wants to bring up? Now, people that might open it up to the public and everyone's like, yes, I have things we want you to discuss. But like, we'll have, it just would make
It could
it,
be very confusing.
it could be
I think
confusing.
you just have it here. During your comments.
Board
You
comments.
can bring it up,
Mhm.
or if you're
Well, so
also
do you
comfortable with
want it
that,
there, or
take
do
it to
you
the
want
board president or superintendent.
Yeah,
Well, that's my question, is do we want it during board comments, or do we want it? Because we were trying to get the board comments short to really dive into the meeting, because we had, like, staff is here waiting, and so do we throw that in
I
at?
don't think we have that many people that are bringing up new things, and if that person just takes a little more time to explain, I think it's okay for most of them, yeah.
Their board comments are quicker now. It was a while where they were.
you just say we want to agendize an item, but maybe just putting some language around like how to bring it up without having a discussion.
Yeah.
Like that might be helpful, but okay, so we'll just change it
The
to
last
say,
time I brought it up, didn't take too long.
that's right.
Cool.
So-
I brought up the redistricting the trustee area.
Oh, yeah,
You don't, it went so fast, you don't remember.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
So that was, where's that one on
so it's
there?
not, we're not changing it, we're leaving it how it is.
Okay.
But maybe some clarification of, right, so a new board member understands, so that might not be, it might not be here, it might be, I think there's another spot where it's like, I think we have like a how-to for new board members. And it might be good in there to kind of explain,
Mhm.
in your board comments, make it very brief, we're not allowed to discuss it. There might actually be something in there that already
Mhm,
says
yeah.
that too. Yeah. Okay, then page 27.
And for the record, I brought up other things in my career too.
But that was the reason why.
That was the most recent.
Okay, so I have two on page, so 27, might be good to discuss the answer for individual board member requests info from staff. Okay, so individual board members requests for information from staff. So our answer is the board president to the superintendent, or as president desires, or
Mhm.
through the superintendent if the request involves a different board member. I don't think in all my time we've ever done the practice of going through the board president.
That's because all questions used to go through the board president, right?
Yeah.
So this is left over.
Yeah, I understand we've never
Yeah.
done that, so I think we want to
Since
pull
you-
that out, right?
Yeah,
Good catch.
yes, through the superintendent.
Yeah.
We'll just change that.
And then, okay, then questions about board self-evaluation timing. Oh, so that, then we'll also change that. So when and how the board evaluates.
Where are you?
Oh, yeah, this one. So, oh, no, okay. So when and how the board conducts a self-evaluation, it says
Oh.
April to May. So we want to change that to November.
And I think just change it to when. Because that doesn't say how.
When?
Oh, yeah, so
Okay.
just have it say, yeah.
When?
Or it can just, but the how is like we use an evaluation tool. So you could just say November with an evaluation tool and a discussion.
Okay.
Cause I think that when and how piece, that's not something we created. That was something that came, this is like a CSBA, like what to know about your board packet that we put into here. Okay,
How, when, I
Actually,
just thought
actually, we
this.
have to do, yeah.
How, when, and whom to notify when about visiting school sites. Follow the sign-in procedures for the school and notify the principal.
Oh, that doesn't.
That's
match.
fine, but it don't we want to keep the superintendent?
we really are doing it.
Yeah, that doesn't follow the other, so,
Yeah,
yeah, put it, do you know which one we're talking about?
Yeah, I
Bridget?
see it.
Put an asterisk there and like, we'll go back and look at the other language,
Right.
make it match.
Okay.
and then the when and how the board evaluates the superintendent. So I think that Augustine got put in there because of COVID and crazy timing. We did that in August last year, and then we kind of did a little bit, but it wasn't really anyways, the whole point of this is that goal setting needs to happen early
Spring.
spring.
Correct.
Okay, so really goal setting is June.
Well, if we
That's actually
want,
A little late.
May,
I mean, if, it depends, what is the purpose of the goal setting? The purpose of the goal setting is to help give direction to superintendent as he is planning out the goals with his staff for the next year. Then it really needs to happen like February, beginning of March at the very latest, yeah, Mike?
okay, it says April, May annual superintendent evaluation, right? So,
And you could say end goal setting.
and goal setting, that's what we'll say. Okay, and then in June, governance team priority setting for the district. What is that? What's different about that?
I don't know.
That's a confusing thing. Because like if we set district goals and then we set district priorities, then it gets,
Those seem to be
Okay,
one
I'm
of the
gonna
things,
stress that
yeah.
out. And then August, you come back and it's like, superintendent, like refining of like goals with the district, with the annual plan or something,
we
or?
just did that this last year.
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
we wanted to show the document and
Hmm.
I guess the actions. The
Mhm.
actions were.
Okay, so August is coming up with a plan. Like matching or
Yeah.
like, because this is like the broader goal setting.
Right.
I
Like,
think,
I guess April and May is like doing the broader goal setting, and then. In August, that's when we see the activities that
Yeah, yeah.
we'll be
Correct.
measuring.
That's the,
it might be like, these are the metrics that we're gonna use for the superintendent evaluation.
correct.
Activities and metric setting for goals. or
And then
something.
is mid-year January,
Mhm.
is that good timing, Mike, or do you think like?
Well, it could be December, January, but then like in reality,
But then
December.
December, it would have to be November, because December wouldn't really. work.
Yeah, so it
So
ends up
it's
being.
really either November or January.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I think my last one. Oh, so yeah, it's page, it's 28 and it's the stipend thing. So my memory of the last time we voted on it was that we had a
Raised it.
discussion. And my guess is it just slipped through the cracks between old superintendent and administrative
Yeah.
assistant and the new, right?
Yeah.
But my memory was that we just wanted to put it in every year. We're giving everyone, like, right, as soon as we stop giving raises to everyone else, then we stop doing it, but if everyone else is getting raises, it's such a minimal amount anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I just say that like there's. I don't know if it's in here, I can't remember right now, but when you. For the candidacy, there is an error in how much we pay to file our candidate statements.
Okay.
Just so you know, because we pay way more than Fremont Unified. High school.
It might not be in
Fremont High
there.
School District, what?
It might not be in there.
Oh, no, because I talked to Jody Muirhead and she was on the redistricting thing and she said that when you go to trustee areas, it's supposed to be much cheaper because you're only paying for the people in your area. And so when they went to trustee areas several years ago,
Yeah.
it reduced.
So Jesus, can you look into
And
that?
so I
We'll look
think,
into it.
yeah, just
But all the fees did go up this year.
right, but our fees went up from what our old number was, right? Like as though we're running district
Okay,
wide.
I wonder, I do think there might be somewhere where we set the pricing, so maybe.
We,
that's
I asked
something-
the ROV
Maybe
about
that's
it.
part of the problem is we need to adjust our pricing.
I asked the ROV.
It's
and
all
the-
very
The
confusing.
ROV said, oh, your district, you passed it as a board of what you're gonna pay us. And so I think it's just based, I think it was before
It's a
we were,
weird
it's a
system.
trustee, it's gotta be
Yeah.
based on population. I think there's an error.
Yeah, so we should look at that. Okay, that was all. That was all my stuff.
Back to the stipend,
Mhm.
what time of year do you guys want to see it?
Whatever timing most convenient for you. I don't
No,
know.
I'm just thinking when it would be.
I mean, I think in the past we did it. I don't remember, we only did it once or twice. When I was on it. If the 19 was the last time we did it.
Raising the stipend?
Yeah,
We should do that.
Maximum 5%.
I think
Yeah.
we do it like in the spring for the next following school year, okay, to keep up with.
So-
because it would start July 1, the fiscal year, July 1, right?
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, can we backward do it for this year? At least start it from now?
yes,
Okay.
you, if that's what, you can retroactively give yourself a raise, but there's also,
Yeah, I don't know. if we'll do
There-
that.
We can just start it, but I mean, like, can we start it for this year? Like, can we put it in and then moving the rest of this year, this fiscal year doing it?
Yeah. of
we
course.
need to check ed code.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, so I would say if we can do it, yeah. And then just have
So,
it,
and then you want to do it every spring.
yeah.
Or like every May, right around the budget time.
Yeah, before we adopt the budget. Don't have that at the June meeting, please.
Yeah, and then if we ever get into an area where we stop doing raises, then we stop ours. Our
Okay.
$5 extra a month.
Gonna make a big difference in your social security check.
Okay, so are we good with that item? Do we have enough corrections and stuff to do?
Keep in mind that, cabinet team's still working on some other pages.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
That's fine.
they've been,
getting the information.
98%. That's what
We're getting there.
Tasha said.
Yeah,
Well, we can like, I can meet with Jesus and we can,
It's not controversial.
Yeah.
It's just factual.
yeah,
no, they're just going through those.
we'll just check the format and.
Okay,
Right.
What about, what
Sounds
is
good.
highlight in yellow? On appendix E,
That's stuff that we're.
that's the things that they're working on.
okay.
Okay, so let's do 3C, review of CSBA Leadership Institute with trustee Juarez Flemrich. If there's any member of the public who'd like to speak on this item, please use the raised hand feature now.
No.
Okay, seeing none, trustee Flemrich.
Okay,
Floor is
I
yours.
see, well, I printed. But I also just share it with everybody, so Nancy can be part of it. Some of the points that are when.
Oh, this is the one that you just emailed to us a little bit.
Yeah.
ago? Okay.
Was just the, yeah, was just the page. So yeah, I don't know, I was just wanted to share what the highlights of all the conversations and workshops, and there was a lot of interesting things about crisis. Most of this was about different crises and how they prepare things that happen in different like crisis communication. All the things we had, like one person from that California county talking to us about like the campground fire during and the aftermath, and a lot of challenges they face and how they were prepared for that, like the POA USD board that was taking over, and all the aggressions that happened and how they were prepared or they were not, or they thought they were very prepared. But when it came to many other things, they just decided that, you know, we should have done it this or that way. Tracy, how they deal with the kidnap and murder of a student, and what happened and how the crisis developed and how the district had to act and change their policies. So hopefully it will never happen again, but if they will have done it better if they knew. So a lot of these stuff were things that they will have done better if they knew it before, and they thought like they knew and they were prepared, but when the crisis show up, they were not. I think we have gone through some, definitely the crisis of the pandemic and the cultural wars that we talk, and we have gone through many things, and we think we are very prepared. But like, well, this is some of the case examples, for example, in preparing for crisis, things that were handled somewhere, somehow, and how they were not or were handled well, like the speaker was unlawfully removed from naming employees while making her complaints about her board. So we talk about civic engagement and how the right way to approach the board. One of the things that they talk, like other notes, for example, the first one, preparing for the crisis, the security video, and I talked this to Mike, when the powwow crisis was happening, they had like the closed meeting in the second floor. And when they were preparing to go to the big board meeting like this, like when we go to the closed session at Mike's little boardroom, or they have to come here, the thing was taken over by the protesters, and there was a lot of violence. They were yelling and yelling racial slurs at the cabinet and at the people, like all the employees. There were kids that because they had kids presenting, there were kids there that were afraid, and then that was the only thing that the police actually came inside and took out the kids in all this thing that was happening. So they walked through us about what we should have done and how things that we can change. So one of the things is that they were aware of everything that was happening, and actually they put it online because they did have a camera inside the boardroom, and they were checking, and they were like doing when they were doing the Nazi salutes, and they were swearing each other as the new board members, and they were, now we are the board, and all that thing that was happening. They were recording everything, and they were having it like it was part of the Zoom meeting that was happening pretty much. And people was looking at what all the mayhem that was going inside the boardroom, because they were actually having the security cameras inside the boardroom. So that was one of the things. Oh, they didn't know, but I think we probably are pretty, like, we know where we are. It's not, but I don't know, they were San Diego. It's not like they were in the middle of nowhere. But they had a lot of problems with who was the police that was in charge of that area, if it was the sheriff, or because they were a multi, you know, they were a very
jurisdictions.
multi-jurisdiction, and then the local police didn't think that they were the ones who should come, and then the sheriff was the one who should come, but then the sheriff already had a lot of community problems with the Black Lives Matter, that they actually took a lot of people to jail, and then they didn't want to prosecute them, so they say, oh, and then we're not gonna take these people to jail either, because why will we put ourselves in the middle if you're not going to prosecute it? So that's not a problem, it's your problem. So anyway, they had a lot of frictions with the other agencies, and they realized that, you know, it's good to be in good standing and talk with other agencies of whatever is happening, so we know who to talk, what to talk, and we know who is the leader and who is the person to call. There was they start putting inside the room from that point forward signs about civic engagement and how not to insult people or staff, or how not to be violent. But I think we said pretty much like the thing that we said at the beginning, like we are going to listen to everybody, like it's in a fair way, but we're going to conduct it in a certain way. Maybe just, you know, like print something like this and put it at the door, like did the same thing, like we are going to listen, everybody has the right to be listened to, but we are not going to insult each other or be violent or that kind of thing. Then the communication director, oh yes, they did have, and this came from the Napa, a different thing, the Napa superintendent was there, the Napa County, and one of the things they need to be prepared during the meetings to whatever can happen, and they had a lot of reactions from the masking policy and the masking mandate and the coming back to school and all that thing, is that the communication director was monitoring the social media while everything was happening. And during the meetings also, so to know, like if they're in the middle of the meeting, if there is a big group of people that is going to enter and disrupt the meeting, so they are aware. Preparing about, then we had the people from the park, the campfire. They talk a lot about a lot of the challenges when the campfire just went through the town, and then they had no building, no district building, no schools, no anything. So, and everybody was in the middle of the crisis, and then they had a lot of people start, like from all around the country, start bringing GoFundMe and fundraisers, and but then like we cannot accept this because we need to have a board meeting to accept donations, and we need to accept each one of them need to be agendized and accept, like, oh, we're gonna 4 million from here or 500 from there. So it's like they, from now on, they put some policy in place where in a major crisis, they will give a special powers to the superintendent, like if a major crisis happen and we cannot have quorum for a meeting because everybody's dealing with that crisis, he can.
Yeah, we did stuff like
accept-
that during COVID.
He can accept a big donation, and that was one of the things that was preparing for a fundraiser. Poway USD. The one of the Poway things that they put in, they don't do that anymore, but they put in the agenda which ballroom they're meeting, and because one of the things is that they needed to open and close the meeting, otherwise they will be actually not abiding with the law that the meeting needed to happen. And that was why they saw each other, because if they are not hitting the board, they now we're the board and who wants to be, and now we are the new board and we fire everybody who we don't like. So they say like, well, you actually need to get into the boardroom somehow and open and then close it. Like, well, they are not letting us do the people's role. Like, we're here to work and do the people's job and help the district. And this is not letting us, so we're gonna just take everything in the agenda and move it to the next meeting. So they needed to open and close the meeting. But they say like if this is an emergency case, because the meeting was a hybrid and was the only people that was gonna come were some teachers, the kids that normally open their meeting. And so the speakers were gonna be in person, the board was gonna be in person for the first time. And they weren't gonna have public, but it was gonna be a Zoom meeting. So because it was gonna be a Zoom meeting, they decided, well, we're gonna do the Zoom meeting, but we need to open and close inside this particular room. We
Because
cannot
that
open
room
and
was
close
listed.
because it's listed on the agenda, so now it's.
So we don't
To
list a
abide with it.
particular room. Do we used to?
Not anymore.
We did before,
Okay,
but now with the new resolution that we have, we don't.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect, yeah, like
Check.
they don't do the room, so
I went back to check the agenda, like, do we specify?
we did on this one, so like, okay,
Yeah,
so they
we
don't
did before.
specify, yeah,
It would say boardroom or it would say.
well, we don't need to.
Yeah, we don't need to,
Yeah, but it's not.
it's just a link.
so,
Like it's
yeah,
a
so
room.
in that case, now they don't do anymore, and if they need to do that from the little boardroom, open and close the Zoom
But
meeting,
even,
then
even if we are no longer under this emergency order where we can do, where it can be like considered a Zoom meeting that we meet in person for, we don't have to put the room
That's
number,
what we're
right?
saying,
We just,
yeah.
we'll just continue that for the next.
What we do have is the address of the district.
Yeah.
So you have to do that.
Mhm.
And I think
And-
Isabel, oh, are you done? I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to finish this very quickly.
ahead.
Well, the fact about legal counsel being available, which I think we have, but they were like, well, everything was happening, they needed to find, like, the lawyers weren't ready, and then they needed to find the lawyer, so the lawyer could talk with all the police departments, and they will tell them like, oh, no, you need to open it, otherwise you are like, you are doing the illegal thing, you actually need to open it, and in that, so he reviewed the agenda, so like, if there is anything, we need to know that we have an emergency lawyer to call, like, what do we do if these crazy things happen?
Got them all on speed dial.
Huh?
I've got them all on speed dial.
Yeah. Create and inform where the policies are. Oh, this one about the memorial, but I think we know already what to do, and I think we know how to deal with this, but there was a lot of harmful or issues. Inside, this is something that is presented to them after the whole crisis, which it was like a 2-hour exposition of the crisis of the kidnapping and the killing of the kid, and how the district was in the center of everything, and how they were the ones in charge of helping the community and communicating during the whole process. And the whole town was taken over by media trucks and newspapers and people. So,
All at the school?
they,
All at the
all at the
school.
school, not at the police, not anywhere, but they were parking inside the school and they wanted to talk every day, like with the teachers and how do you feel and how is the kid and tell me more about the kids and all this stuff. Then after they found the kid, sadly, then they wanted to bring like the priest inside the school during the memorial, and the school made an assembly, and then they wanted to bring a priest to talk about it. And then they said no, because it's a religious thing. And then there was a big discussion about how to handle it in a delicate situation. And then some kids wanted to put some crosses. So it's like, I think they were okay about handling that, but that was like a lot of the discussion was like how you can, if the kid who died has a particular religion or view, if it would be appropriate or not to talk about that during the memorials, and how to be respectful to everybody who wants to memorialize the kid. Well, I think we have done a lot about like the bomb threats and all that. I think we had a lot of situation. At least I know like two that I lived in Fairwood with how the police deals with these issues and how to protect the kids and the community. There was, the main thing was about having a communication director. That was like the key thing, who will be prepared for any kind of crisis. About this crisis, then we had, I remember I told you about this story, like one of them came and there was this little town also in California. Well, all of these, they were there, they were from the California, the CLSBA, when there was some bullying in the school, and then they decided, because it got too aggressive, they decided to take out the 3 kids that were bullying, and they were like still during the process of review for everybody needed to, like the case needed to be, all the kids' names needed to be protected, but then one of the parents decided to call, I suppose, right extremists, the people, lawyers, bring it because they say like the kid was being unfairly taken by this progressive school, because the whole thing was that their kid didn't want to use a different pronoun to talk about this kid, and he wasn't really bullying, he just was using the pronoun that the kid thought it was right, which apparently wasn't really the case, but they couldn't even talk about it because they were protecting the kids. But like pretty soon, like they have media cars and Fox News, and they start having all these media coming from all around the country and taking over the stores. Like every day they have like 6 different people trying to get and put the microphone in front of the superintendent and the teachers. And then they went to the elementary schools, and in front of each of the schools, there was like this big media truck trying to talk with the teachers. What do you think? Tell me that, talk with the kids, and disrupting all the district, it being a big mess. So, and then like, so a lot of these, I think the conclusion was about being prepared, about having one message, being prepared about what the policies are, like, well, we cannot talk about this case, we're protecting all the kids, and even the bullied and the not bullied kids, everybody are kids, and we need to protect their privacy and their rights, and how we're gonna, like, how we are gonna react, and we should all have the same message, and how we should all you know, be prepared and be prepared to follow one communication line, so we don't, you know, we don't make a situation worse for everybody. Then yeah, inside the school, yeah, and I think that was pretty much okay.
It sounds like it was like a really informative, great, you know, weekend. Was it a weekend or was it?
Yeah.
A weekend.
Yeah. Thursday.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, for crisis
Friday,
communications,
Saturday.
we're fortunate to have Aaliyah.
Yeah.
And then also Jeremy tries to block this out, but that was his job before. And when you're talking about like Fox News, like converging on a community, he actually dealt with that in Cupertino. Where did I'll get it. I'll tell you the whole story some other time. But the thing is, you're never going to be ready because no 2 situations are exactly the same. So what's good is Aaliyah and then Jeremy too, as a resource, have resources to back up and a part of a bigger network. The other thing I would say is regard to disruptions in board meetings, you may have seen that, I think the governor just signed new legislation. Was clarifying how boards should act to remove, I'm not gonna say it right. Disruptive individuals. I'm confident that that'll come up at AEC, like we'll start getting training on that. And so it's gonna be really important that whoever is the board president is well versed in that, and me and Jesus too. So that we can help for that, because yeah, we have very nice, calm board meetings, until we don't. We've never had one before.
Hopefully it'll not get that bad, but being prepared.
Right, but being prepared and being
Oh.
consistent.
One thing that I wrote down, but I didn't, I forgot to put it here, is that they, like, they were able during the Zoom meetings, either the president or the communication person, to have a minute if, because sometimes they were very uncivil people using bad language and being very aggressive, they will just mute the person and then, okay, who's the next? And like somebody was in control and be aware that they are responsible to stop the violence happening, like, okay, we'll stop it here. The next person,
That's
because you're
tricky
not
because
following or.
there's, yeah, like
Yeah.
you captured here. There's legally, you can't just do that just because like, I don't
They have
like
the
what
right
you're
to say
saying.
anything they want.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
Yeah,
the only time we're in right is like, and we have to be consistent, like at a time limit, mute.
Yeah.
And then, but if we do that on the dot for this person, but we don't do it for this person. I think the biggest thing is like, we haven't had anybody major, but we have had people kind of disruptive. And if we overreacted, then they can sue us.
Yeah.
Or they could bring some kind of litigation against
Yeah.
us. And that's the thing, it's just always protecting us from litigation.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to be versed in it, because
When
some
in
of
doubt,
them are actually
please do.
seeking that out, right?
Yeah,
They can't threaten the people, right? Like they can be critical, but they can't threaten people.
That's subjective.
Yeah,
You can, I mean, I wouldn't want to, that's subjective. Would
It-
you
it
view
is
as a
very
threat,
subjective.
somebody else could say, "Oh, I didn't mean it that
city
way."
council meeting, so like.
Yeah.
I mean, if the person had a knife or a gun right and is threatening, that's a different story.
Yeah.
That's
That's a
really-
physical threat, that's a physical disruption.
Right.
If they actually had a weapon, then everything closes down, you can move, and that's a different thing.
Yeah,
But for someone to verbally say, spew
Right.
out from vile things, it's all subjective,
mhm.
That's right. I'm saying, I'm pretty sure we're gonna start getting some really good training because of the new
Yeah.
legislation, which will be.
But that's where like, and like time limits, right? It's like they get to do that, but only for 3 minutes. And then if they go past their 3 minutes, right, like then you remind them, like, this was your time. If they continue, then they're disruptive and you can remove
so
them,
we've
right?
encountered little few things, and that's why during the pandemic when it first started, I was really trying to be like, keep to the time,
Mhm.
because, as much as you want to care and reach out to the people,
You Gotta be consistent.
you gotta be consistent, because that one vile person is gonna come up and like expose this liability.
Mhm.
Yeah, the other thing in the past is we know someone is upset. And may come to a meeting, then the superintendent and the board president will talk about how are we gonna handle that, and then the superintendent generally will give a heads up to the rest of the board.
You can always ask, DPS and present at a given time.
Yeah, yeah.
We have MOUs with DPS for,
We don't need to know you with TPS.
It's
Just
just a
call
safety,
them.
right? There's a safety
It's their job.
concern.
well, no, because it was during the pandemic, but there was a thing with South City, I think, where they were angry with the school district for something and they,
Oh, their public safety.
their
was?
public safety was.
Oh,
and
yeah,
there was-
you wanna have a good relationship
Yeah, it
with
was-
them.
Mhm.
Okay, well, so there's a couple little things here that I noticed that are like, facilities related, like layout related, like, speaker table instead of podium, or the idea of a security video in the boardroom. Is that something that, like, we wanna talk about or take, like, ask facilities about, or?
We can look at some of these. Yeah.
What's the purpose of a table over a podium?
well, the one, they were saying that when they did that, lower the importance because a lot of people were using their boardrooms so they could share whatever crazy thing they did into YouTube and they feel important going on. But we haven't had that much.
Yeah,
of
I know what you mean, there's like a dynamic of.
Yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
gonna,
You're sitting,
I'm
they're
at the
sitting.
podium.
yeah.
And I'm here, and you're sitting over
Most of
there.
this stuff, right, like, I think it's like good to be aware of, but really, when I kind of just skimmed through this stuff, because I was like, this is like, could potentially be things we need to consider, like, be more concerned about, but I think like, I think kind of Jeff, like, I think what we do is great, and really the only thing we need to work right now is consistency. If something changes, then we circle back, in my mind, right, and consider some of these.
There are some people though that come to mind, I mean, they do come ready to try to start trouble. I mean, we've had that. I mean, like the charter school, at one time when they came in, I mean, he was, I don't know how he was, but it was like, he was intent on breaking our rules. He was prepared to get arrested. I don't know why he'd be arrested.
well, sometimes that's a goal,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
you wanna get arrested, you wanna.
And that's, I think that's just. And then, I mean, that was even before everything, all the nonsense lately has been happening. Now it's like, what was it? Some local school district, didn't they have to like close down because people were just. Was it a local school district or was it city council? They just basically charged, a couple of them started charging forward. And the police had to remove them. Is that San Francisco? Yeah, I think it's San Francisco. Yeah, you're right. Was that a school? That was a school district. Yeah, they were all very
They've
upset.
had a very rough few years.
And a couple of people just decided they were just gonna, break the perimeter and start charging the board members and. Yeah, it was San Francisco. I don't even know.
The difference between, I think, the way our setup is here is that. Even though you're at the dais, you're still at eye level. I've seen some councils and or board meetings where their dais is
They're
higher.
above
so-
everybody.
So you're looking down upon them, right? So there's a difference in that. The one in San Francisco, they're like on stage, they're on a stage, so. Yeah, so sometimes the way the setup is gives them a perception, right? Versus like here, you're at eye level, everybody's sitting down, everybody's at eye
Yeah.
level versus.
Nobody's above anybody
Correct.
else.
So.
Unless you're at the podium, in which case.
But it's only slightly above, yeah,
Yeah,
but it makes it easier for everyone to see them.
It's just crazy time right now.
So before we end this, I want to like change gears to the community engagement slide she sent us.
Yes.
But if there was more on this, I just want to change, but I don't want us to end until like,
Yeah, and the other ones, the other ones I had it, it was like part of my memory, but it was. I felt like these are more related with like things that you should put on the handbook, which is the community engagement, and it was a whole workshop about different ways of community engagement.
so did you attend, like the slide you sent us, did you attend?
Yes,
Okay, because I
yes,
was like,
And the slides
like the
are
other
really
slide I just kind of glanced through, but that one, I like loved that one. So I thought that's what you were gonna talk about tonight, is like community engagement is like a focus or whatever, so I was like super excited about it. So I really loved, so I don't know, because there's like two different numbers, so I think it's like the sixth slide, but the slides are together, so it's like on the third page, But the 6 core root causes of ineffective community engagement. I just thought that was a good, like that was my note that I made when I was reading through it, was like, it'd be really interesting to dive into like these, right? And to be open and real, like discussing like which one of these, I just only did it like in 3 minutes thinking about, okay, like, I don't think that's necessarily a concern for our district, but this might be one, or, so I think that could be, as we're sometime this year, whenever we're diving into the community engagement, I think these 6 root causes of ineffective community engagement would be an interesting space for us to kind of talk about, hey, this is where I think we're struggling, or this is whatever that might be. So I really liked that slide.
and
I think that would be really good when we talk about our what is it that we want to do this year, to have that as a background framework. Because if it isn't, some things we think are great ideas, but they may not be, and just have that to be a touch point would be helpful.
And I like the 14 slide, how they put like different kind of ways how you view the school, like the Fortress School, and it was interesting because.
What is this
one-
on, what slide is it on? The
the
slide
14,
away, I
that one,
can't do it.
Community engagement, the 14, this one.
Is that what page is it?
It's on page 7, sorry, it's my page
Okay.
7, but it's the slide 14.
Okay.
So in that one, they put, you know,
Yeah.
they talk about, well, normally you see the Fortress School, like, oh, we want to close the school when nobody can get seen. It's very complicated. You need to sign. And you know, it's interesting because at the same time, they are talking to us about bombing and shooting and all this stuff. So, and then we shift to this one when it's about making the schools open for everybody. So like, come if we call you school, like you cannot come unless we actually come and talk to you to come and talk with the principal or something. Then they say like, oh, then we actually don't even do like open door school. We need to make a partnership school, which it will be more like the somehow the like that favorite idea. So they were trying like, oh, you need to see the school as a partnership with the community and the place where all the communities engage and all the communities happening there because it's kids and kids need community and family, and that's what you need to do. So it was a talk towards the green in this
Yeah,
one.
that was an interesting slide
But
too.
you know, it was also interesting because like few hours ago, we were talking with these people and they were talking about the bombs and the people getting and the news trying to get into the classrooms and trying to bring cameras into the first grade and how you stop them to getting into the classroom and disrupting everything that was happening. And then on the other side, like,
You're saying we need to engage them all.
it's a community place, like the park is like pretty much is like, oh, the park is gonna be in the middle of the school or something. Like you feel like this is the happening. The happening is inside the schools because that's the way like how education should move. So it's like a complete different approach, but I suppose there would be a
Yeah.
middle point, like
Yeah.
yeah.
So the slides are not working on my Chromebook or my iPad anymore, but then the next page, so slide 15. Those questions I really loved. I don't remember them now, but I really loved, that was my other note, was I really loved. Whenever we have a discussion too, I think those would be, so the top of it says, how will your district amplify diverse voices? And then it's just like questions, right? Like, who are the specific student groups who are impacted by decision, right? Anyways, those are just those 4 questions I thought were really good. And I felt like really connects with the things we want to focus on. So, yeah, so those were the 2 pages. I mean, I like the one you said too, but those 2 pages, those 6 root causes, and then those 4 questions.
Yeah.
I just was like, yes, this is perfect for the work we're doing this year.
So I want to say thank you for attending. That took time out of your summer engagement with family and friends and personal time. So I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so, are we ready to end the meeting? It's 9:19, this meeting is adjourned. Oh, actually, I need to say our next meeting, right? Yeah, sorry.
You need to say the next meeting.
Okay, wait, I just missed
September
this.
8th.
Thursday, September 8th, 6 o'clock.
Thank you. Our next meeting is Thursday, September 8th, 6 o'clock PM, and the meeting's adjourned 9:19 PM. Thank you.